Aero-News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Aviation's #1 safety equipment manufacturer. New ELTs and safety products that activate life-saving rescues across the world. ELTs and safety products for every type of aircraft. General aviation, business jet, rotorcraft, commercial aircraft. Easy installation, affordable pricing, safety and reliability. Visit www.artex.com to view our selection of ELTs and safety products today. Artex, your best last chance.
At Diamond Aircraft, innovation is in our DNA. Whether you're taking to the skies for training or business travel, every aircraft in Diamond's lineup features innovative technology, an industry-leading safety record, superior performance and efficiency, and a comfortable flying experience. No other company has pioneered as many aviation firsts, achieved more milestones, or received the same amount of industry praise as Diamond. Discover why Diamond Aircraft is one of the most trusted manufacturers in aviation at diamondaircraft.com.
Vantage is Avidyne's family of all-new flight display systems for retrofit and forward-fit applications. Initial certification will be Vantage 12, retrofit glass for legacy Cirrus aircraft. Vantage 12 brings advanced capabilities and adds new life to Cirrus aircraft, including large 12-inch diagonal hybrid touchscreen displays, 3D synthetic vision, and split-screen capabilities. Additional Vantage programs will be announced in the future.
Alrighty, folks, guess what? It is day 3 of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show. And our 13th, 14th iteration of our live program, I guess it would be 13th, although 14 years, having missed 1 year during the onset of the pandemic. And to make a long story short, it's been a great show. Nothing earth-shattering in terms of announcements, but a lot of incremental upgrades, a lot of incremental innovation. And it was pretty obvious that while people got stuck at home or away from the office and having to communicate electronically, a lot of work was done and people were looking to the future. And for the better part of the last 2.5 years, the industry went and did its best under extraordinary circumstances. On Monday, we heard from 29 companies with 29 new product introductions, many of them with multiple product introductions. So it turned into a very interesting display of just how far this industry could push under the worst of circumstances. Great stuff indeed. So let's talk about specifics. We're here with Andy Davis. And Andy, you didn't bring the scotch, buddy.
I did.
You did?
We have scotch.
Okay, well, there we go. Well, I was talking about up here. I wanted to have a fun interview.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
see.
come on. Andy, of course,
Yeah,
is
come later.
long associated with Trig Avionics. He has been their CEO. He's the boss, the grand poobah, and more important than anything else, brings the cool stuff. What's new at Trig?
First thing that's new at Trig is that we're actually here. I mean, that may sound like a strange thing, but as you were saying, this is my first time in country since 2019.
Yeah.
Because of all of the travel
still here.
restrictions. We're still here.
Yeah.
We're still cracking on. But yeah, what a strange time it's been. Doing things remotely, trying to keep up with what's been going on. One of the effects of the last couple of years is changes in some of our emphasis on business and where our business has been. I have to say, almost paradoxically, one of our biggest growth areas has been here in the US, even though we couldn't get here. Turns out that maybe it's the national psyche, but when a pandemic hits, especially at the experimental end, people apparently go out in their yard and build an airplane, which has been good for us.
Or fix up the one they have.
Or fix up the one they have.
Or finish the one they started a long time ago.
Well, that as well, if you
a lot of that.
discover that you have extra time on your hands. So actually, you're right, some things are different, but the same. We have had some product development going on. There's some things which, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we might have brought to market sooner, but are now coming out. So this year we have a couple of new products that we'll be shipping.
Outstanding. I assume Oshkosh will be a center point for what you're bringing to the industry from here on out?
Oshkosh is going to be a big celebration for us, yes. So we will have things to show and things to talk about, and again get back with our friends and re-engage. Outstanding.
So what was hot as far as your company was concerned? What was driving a lot of your sales?
Well, pre-pandemic, what was driving a lot of our sales was the ADS-B mandate.
Yeah.
That kind of has wrapped up now. There is still some follow-on business from that. There are still people who have not done the upgrades. There are still people, there are people who, of course, didn't do so much flying in the last couple of years and therefore didn't need to get into that airspace and didn't need to get out there. So there's still some trickling of business, but that's a lot of that is done. But we still have products there, and you're right, these guys finishing off those kit planes that they never got to. So that's good. We've moved on from that though now, and the things that we are bringing out this year, the main thing that's going to be shipping real soon now is our Navcom, the TX56A, and for this market, which is a slim form factor, full-featured Navcom, and that's going to drive quite a lot of our uptick and getting back into it this year.
Talk about the feature set for that.
It's form factor is one of the key features. It's just 1.3 inches high, which is a form factor previously used by the SL30 Navcom. It's a full-featured comm radio with built-in station memory, as well as a full-featured nav radio. So it does your VOR and ILS.
Okay.
Its likely market is the number 2. I mean, a lot of people, of course, have a GPS navigator as their number 1 comm, nav, GPS. But if you need something to back that up, second comm radio and that nav capability, particularly the ILS receiver, is what's going to get you there if something goes wrong with box number 1.
Redundancy is everything.
Redundancy is everything, and it as I say, it's fully featured. It'll drive the modern glass. It'll drive legacy indicators. So either for that retrofit upgrade or somebody doing a forward fit, it can do both.
Outstanding. What else is on your plate?
Some other things are going on in the background, which hopefully will come out later this year, but we're not really ready to talk about those at this stage.
Okay. Well, one of the serious draws to Trig has been your form factors.
Yep.
I mean, you build some tiny gear, and the best part is for the RV guy or the long easy guy, or for folks who are at older Cessna and Piper panels that are built to the max and crammed to the gills and not a whole lot of space to fit in something else they need. You've been manna from heaven.
Yep.
How have you addressed that market, and how do you see that market maturing right now?
The form factors that we have are, I'm going to say, about as small as you practically need to get. We are doing some follow-on products in that form factor, which will be I will say slightly smaller, but not much smaller, because once you're once you weigh less than a pound and doesn't take up much space at all, that's not really the driver. So it just becomes keeping the ideas going, adding some extra features and pushing that forward. So we do have some things going on in that space.
Okay.
We're also working to integrate those products with some other control heads, some other controllers that let you cram even more into the space.
5 pounds in a 2 pound bag, buddy.
Well, what's been attended is that panel real estate, even for some of the larger aircraft, is valuable. People want those larger screens and using up the center stack to fill that kind of stuff in drives people down more of the remote path. So we have the remote gold boxes, as we call them, for the things like the transponders, where you can mount that somewhere else and it isn't taking up space in the panel. And so that's still a growth for us. That's real important.
Interesting. Where do you, what trends are you seeing in the U.S. market, or for that matter, the international market, that are attracting you? Seeing anything that's kind of saying, oh, okay, we see a course correction coming up?
I'm not going to say a course correction because I think it's a continuation of what's already been going on.
Okay.
There is this move down towards the light sport, the experimental end of aviation. There's more of a split now happening with I have to be careful what I say here because I own one of those old gas guzzlers, but the older gas guzzlers are being a little bit squeezed by fuel prices, which is a very current situation that's affecting everybody. But that general trend, the direction is not going to change.
No.
And so we're starting to see that if you're going for that very light end, the two-place airplanes with Rotax engines, there's some pretty interesting designs now that have some good capability, but they're more economical, and that's using modern methods, modern aerodynamics to get there. And so that's a growing portion of our market. That's really important. At the other end, if it's real transportation, then that's going somewhere. So funnily enough, the gap in the middle is widening out between those two different areas of the industry.
We've been watching a trend of the industry right now in regards to what may be happening with what is currently called light sport, and will be augmented by new regulations, supposedly in the 23-24 timeframe. This will potentially include bigger, faster aircraft in a simpler certification and operational category, some a little bit more liberal with licensing, so forth and so on. Are you prepared for this? Or what kind of preparations do you think you need to make as a company to be able to adapt to what seems to be on the horizon, even though much of the detail is nebulous?
I think that what people are looking for in the kinds of products that we make are not changing that much, because they're driven by regulations. So although you may change the airframe certification, the requirements for it to have ADS-B in particular rule airspace, or for it to communicate with the ground and so on, those are not changing particularly. So the form factor, though, comes into it because that becomes important to people as to how they're going to use as I say, the panel real estate and so on. But I don't think it changes too much of what we need to do. We like it, though, because it is one of the ways that you can drive some growth back into the industry. GA is very slow moving, and providing opportunities for some of these new kinds of aircraft. It's happening in Europe as well. There's been changes to the so-called 600 kilo rules that are allowing additional types. Again, bigger, but coming up from the bottom rather than trying to shrink down a larger airframe, and that gives extra capability and better value for the aircraft generally.
Well, we're curious to see what's going to come up of all that. However, the big issue is the FAA and the industry guidance that they're taking has been really silent. There was a whole lot of hubbub. This is going to be this is going to be that. 2 years ago, not a whole lot since. The promise, of course, is that we will see a lot more information at Oshkosh this year, and it will take a year after that for a true regulation to be brought into existence. But schedules with the FAA, they tend to go.
Yeah, I think you previously said 2023. I think that might be optimistic.
Well, we were also hoping for 2021 a couple of years back. So
but something got in the way of that.
Yeah, something got in the way of that. So eek, schedules, those miserable little things we tend to look at, hope for, and ultimately break our hearts.
Yeah.
What can you do? Eek, crazy. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, you are not a U.S. manufacturer. Being located out in Europe, you're at first subject to a different regulatory environment, have to cross the pond, and then there's the additional regulatory environment. Things must be a little bit more difficult for a Trig than it would be for a US-based manufacturer. How does that all work for you?
That's only slightly true. What's happened over the last few years is there has been additional bilateral agreements between EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency, and the FAA that mean that now there is far more alignment of the different standards. Interesting enough, when we first started out even making transponders, the rules for at a very detailed level for a transponder in Europe and the rules for a transponder in the US were different. They've been aligned. So now if it meets one, it meets the other.
Cool.
So all of our products come with a European certification, but that is automatically accepted now by the FAA across all of the product lines. So from a point of view of getting in here, it doesn't make too much of a difference. There are some regulatory hurdles. I think that they are pretty much equal. I think that the way in which EASA certifies and TSOs our products is not that different to the way that the FAA does the same with our US colleagues. So it's pretty much a level playing field from that point of view.
Wonderful. Okay. I had heard at times it could be a little bit circuitous, but that information is a couple of years old, so obviously things seem to have
It has got better in the last small number of years, and
Excellent.
now it's really pretty straightforward.
Bureaucrats doing their jobs. Who
Bureaucrats
knew?
do their jobs eventually, yes.
Amazing. There you go. There are, excuse me, dry throat folks, sorry. There are a number of problems that are occurring right now with supply chain. We're hearing right, left, and forward that when you least expect it, you can't get what you want.
Yep.
When you can get it, it's 2-3 times or more of the price that you had originally negotiated.
Yep.
So forth and so on. So how is Trig weathering the supply chain crisis?
We are doing okay. We have issues like a lot of people do. The good news is that there is no kind of what I'll call system-wide impact on our product lines that is stopping any particular product lines. But you're right, it is, sometimes it's small components that are just generic things that you would always expect to buy, and they suddenly turn out to be on a 26-week lead time or something like that. We had discussions the other day in the office about sheet metal that you fold to make the trays that has gone on to long lead because it turns out that you can't buy the metal. The good news is we do have stock in our supply chain for most of the parts most of the time. But it is true that we have had disruptions in, and as I say, surprising things, whether it is cardboard or sheet metal or whatever, and you can't quite get there. We've been placing ever longer orders with our suppliers, which is a bit scary when you're trying to guess what you're going to make in 2023, because you actually have to place the orders now for
and of
those
course,
parts.
what you order now has to be paid for now, so that must drive cash flow.
In some cases,
totally
you have to pay
bonkers.
for it.
Yeah.
Because the thing that we've all discovered in the last few months is there's a new word in the electronics industry called a decommit, which is that you had an order, you knew you were going to get the parts, you had them scheduled out, they were going to get delivered, and then the supplier decommits, which means they just don't give it to you. And there was a line somebody else said, which is, so the only thing you can trust is the parts you've actually got in your building.
Ow. That has to hurt.
That has to cost.
Yeah.
That's actually the real impact, is that there's a cash flow pressure where you have to actually start stocking up on all of these things. And so far, I mean, there's a touch wood moment here. We're actually doing okay. Most of our products are available all of the time, but we have some lead time issues. So some things that you might have normally expected to be a week, 2 weeks, are now maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. But we're getting through there, and we're working with our customers, actually. Sometimes it's the case of, well, what do you really need? and see if we can support that customer for an install they're doing, for an airplane's in the shop. You need to get in there. And so, yep, so far so good. But yeah, it is quite stressful and quite a lot of running around in the background. It looks serene on the surface, but the legs are going fast under the surface.
It's the old duck on water game.
Duck on water game. That's what it looks like.
Great. Topside,
Yep.
below, just paddling furiously.
That's the one.
Ouch. We've also had some interesting discussions about the state of training. Trying to hire people right now has become an interesting game, apparently everywhere. It's a combination of finding people who are trained and then finding people who will work, which may not be the same thing at the same time.
Yep.
What experiences are you having out there? What advice do you give to the industry at L about how you're dealing with it, and potentially to the folks out there who are looking to enter and work in the industry?
So a couple of things. First of all, I'm not necessarily the good person to give advice on how you hire people, because we've been struggling to do that as well. In a couple of areas, even manufacturing people, it turns out to be quite hard to find them. One piece of advice that I would give is something that Trig has done for some time. We have an apprenticeship scheme. We take in young people and train them through the company, and in parallel release them, and they end up with a college degree at the end of the program. Mm-hmm. And we are actually trying to develop our own talent, and we have some people who
grow
come
your
through
own.
that program. Grow your own. I mean, we've been doing it for a while, and so we've actually now got some results from that. We have some people working up the company who did indeed start in our Grow Your Own program. It's worth doing. It's both giving back, but also it does give you benefits. And yeah, that's the one thing I would encourage people to do, is have some kind of start at the bottom of apprenticeship program, properly funded, with proper external training as well. And I say our guys end up with college degrees, and some have gone on to do higher degrees, still sponsored by Trig, and we think that that's a pretty good way of going.
Well, that must require a tremendous amount of advanced planning and forward vision think.
It requires some forward vision think. It actually doesn't take that much planning. You just say, hey, let's do it. There are actually agencies that help you do it. So if you go along, there are programs that you can sign up for, where you can say, I actually want to do this. I don't know how to go about it. Tell me what to do. That's exactly how we first got started. They told us what to do. Sign these forms, do this, do that. Here's how to select the candidates. Here's how to go. And I mean, this is, I'm talking now, 10 years ago we started doing this. We still have guys going through programs today.
Wow.
And it's been great.
Wonderful. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Have you found some of the AEA educational outreach and so forth to be effective even across the pond?
Yes, we do. We do actually in our, because of course, although we're a manufacturer, we also run, for example, a repair station, because we need the Part 145 organization internally to do our own stuff. Some of the AEA materials are actually quite useful to both for onboarding people and also for refresher training, and that can be very useful. So it's actually great being part of the AEA, because they give that away free to the member organizations.
Interesting. Well, as we close this particular session, any more hints about what we might expect at Oshkosh or beyond? Come on, I got to try. I mean,
Yeah,
just between you and me, I promise, they won't
Nobody's
talk.
watching, I know. That's, yeah. No.
Okay, well, I tried. What can I
Nice
say?
try.
Well, I think Oshkosh this year is going to be interesting, just from the standpoint that there's a pent-up need to do something.
There is.
There's a pent-up need to go get something.
Yep.
There's a pent-up need to get out and fly. What's interesting, we are Sun and Fun's media partner. We do the daily and all that. I was privy to their chairman's meeting a couple of weeks ago, in which all of their advanced numbers for the show were at or above record levels on their primary indicators, and in some cases, they had 50% upkicks on record numbers. And this is the advanced sales for things like parking and RV area and all that kind of thing. So right now the demand seems high, and providing the miasma that's settling in a little bit from people who are concerned about gas prices and other economic conditions don't hold them back, it could be a really good way to get back into the season of things here.
Because people want to get back out again.
Boy.
As you say, that pent-up feeling with too much locked in. Let's get out, let's meet people, let's do stuff.
Andy, I appreciate your time as always. It's been a while since you and I had a chance to sit here. Glad to finally get a chance to do it.
Yep.
This is Andy Davis, our CEO of Trig Avionics across the pond, who tend to bring really good scotch to these shows, so one of our favorite people. So there you go. Andy, thanks so much for joining us here on Airborne and Aero-TV and Aero-News. Okay, folks, this is the 65th annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. We're here live at the Ernest Morial Convention Center off of Convention Center Boulevard here in New Orleans. It's been an interesting week getting to this point. My wife and I did the Bourbon Street crawl the other day, watching a bunch of spring breakers prove to us why we never want to be young again, because to be young is stupid, apparently. That was kind of an interesting bit of people watching. But at any rate, we're coming down to the end of a really great week. Unfortunately, we got storms chasing out of here pretty quick, but we've got a great guest list to talk to for the rest of the 3 hours that we have planned for today. Scott Smith from Aspen is on deck. Sean Deeker from Flight Cell is coming up thereafter. AEA's Rick Perry, Mr. Regulation, Mr. Washington is coming up soon. We've got additional sessions scheduled with Toman, Apereo, CIES, Smart Sky, Astronics, and then we get to get out of here. So we're going to take a short break. Once again, we're live, AEA, 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. Be right back. We're back. Alrighty, folks, we are down to our next guest, one of the things I wanted to chat about real quick before. We've had a couple of questions come across on email. We start our coverage at Sun and Fun Tuesday officially. We'll be there as of Saturday morning working on getting everything together. But we do have a program at 0900 every morning, Tuesday through Saturday, called the Morning Brief. And that'll be a combination of what's gone on the day before, a little bit of forward-seeking on what's happening with the day and the schedule to come, as well as a few guests or two to talk about some of the pivotal planes, products, and people that'll be showing up at spring's greatest aviation event, and we're looking forward to being there in a big way. One other thing, we've had a number of questions come through. Okay, are you guys doing the April 1st edition this year? Yes, we are, but we pulled a little stunt on you. A&N celebrated its 25th anniversary in November. We have, 25 years old, well past drinking age. And to make a long story short, we've had some phenomenal stories over the years in the April 1st edition, and we're collecting some of the best and presenting them all to you this Friday. Some of them are pretty insane. Some of them got us into a lot of trouble. We were going over our selection the other night. Marino and I were up in the dining room talking about this stuff and laughing so hard our stomach hurt. It's really interesting what we got away with in the past. And boy, we made fun of you guys a bunch. It was
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that, Jim.
It was a good time. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
So there you go. So let's get down to nitty gritty here. We've got Scott Smith, Director of Sales, Aspen Avionics. What's new? Tell me what's the latest and greatest in Aspen world, because you guys are hard charging, and there's a little bit of corporate intrigue going on right now.
Yeah.
Big changes.
Well, yeah, we've got some changes going on. Some of the biggest things we've done since the last time we spoke, Jim, we've really kind of streamlined a lot of our product line from we got rid of the external battery, so there's no more external battery on the MFD, everything's internal. We've also allowed customers now to put in 2 screens, so a 2000 max or 2500 max will be the 3 screens, which is obviously what we prefer.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you do a 2000 system now, 2 screens, no backups are required. You literally could cut a new panel and have the 2 screens there, which is dual redundancy and all that. So there's that. And then on as far as company news goes, we just recently became, as of last week, AS 9100 certified. And so that's a big deal for us, and that's a quality check deal, and internally. But that was some good news. We also have Autopilot interfaces. We got some new Autopilot interfaces. The Garmin Gfc 600. That one is full steam ahead, and hopefully we'll have certification will be completed here shortly in the next few months or less. I'd really like to have it by Oshkosh. So. We'll see how that goes. The other one that's really grabbing traction and folks are enjoying is the 3100 interface. People are liking that, and we're getting really good feedback on that. So if you think about a new Autopilot, as far as interface ability goes, that 3100's really nice from Genesis. So
Outstanding. The industry's gone through an interesting couple of years.
Well, isn't that the truth?
How did that affect Aspen?
Oh, it was a lot of ways. We had challenges like everyone else out there, going through.
Even though Albuquerque's not part of the real world?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, we all had the challenges. We had to, everybody had to make some sacrifices here and there. But Aspen's, we're still here, obviously, and plan on not going anywhere. We've had some really good feedback recently, and just seeing the market go in the right direction, if you will. And our everything from where I'm sitting has been going the right direction between getting product, being able to get components, because we've been challenged like everybody else with the whole componentry and lead times and supply chain issues, and seeing big delays. Well, we're getting in front of that now, and most of our lead times are less than a month. So we're finding that's becoming real attractive. Just say, hey, if you call us, you can actually get product.
Okay.
Where a lot of places you can't. So dealers appreciate that as well, because they're seeing gaps in their schedule now because they can't get certain products, and they can call Aspen and get product from us. So they're using those gaps to fill them with Aspen installs. So we appreciate that of course.
Yeah, the supply chain issue has been brought up a number of times here. We were joking yesterday that we should turn it into a drinking game. Every time somebody says supply chain issue, take another chug.
Yeah.
Everybody has been affected. Everybody has their own different set of solutions. It's been a combination of pay more to get what you used to get for a whole lot less,
That's right.
wait a lot, or in some cases reverse engineer and start over. But it's certainly been something that's been on everybody's minds here in a big way. The other issue that has been brought up quite a bit has been the issue of hiring. That right now finding both people who are qualified and people who want to work, kind of a big deal. How is Aspen dealing with that?
Well, we're fortunate that we have, most of our employees have extensive tenure. I mean, I've been with the company myself going on 15 years. Everybody internally that I work with have been there between 8 to more years. But we're finding that what affects us is with our dealer network. And when you're trying to find folks, and especially in our industry, because it's a very technical, you have to have a certain set of skills to do this, and so we're hearing that our dealers obviously will be are being challenged with this. So, but at Aspen we don't have a lot of turnover. Our employees been around a long time, and everybody's we just chug right along. So
the industry overall had an interesting quandary with people who had to shelter in place, and yet at the same time, a lot of pilots, aircraft owners, and operators took the time to do upgrades while their aircraft were more idle than usual. And so people had to work with that. And it was interesting that there was actually an uptick in some cases in purchase and installation activity while the aircraft weren't doing what they normally do. How much of that did you see at Aspen? A
lot, and that's a great point, Jim. I mean, we saw that our customer base became more active with all the restrictions and everything, because everybody says, well, I can't go anywhere, might as well put my airplane down and do some avionics upgrades, right? And so our dealers were then at that point, all of their schedules went from a normal business of 2 to 3 months or less out to, we saw many of them even today that are out more than a year still. So that's a big challenge that that customers have as well when they're trying to get, I got my new airplane I just bought and I want to upgrade the avionics. Well, you go up to the avionics shop and you're like, hey, I want to put this new Aspen thing in, and they go, oh, we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge for us as well. And like you said, trying to find folks who have the abilities to do these installs, and dealers, bringing on new employees, doing the training, all that, definitely is a lot. There's a lot of challenges out there with that.
How do you think the new corporate structure will affect Aspen, both short-term and long-term?
Well, I think we'll see, or I'm excited because with the Aero Group deal, I'm hoping to see, adding more engineer, more R&D, research and development for new products, new capabilities, more reach in the market, and have just have the ability to do new things and see more, more productivity is what I'm trying to spit out. So just having the tools to expand our product line will be real beneficial.
The industry right now is looking at a number of changes in certification basis that revolved initially around LSA, and now there's a lot of talk about more seats, more speed, more capability, liberal licensing, blah, 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 with a promise of details at Oshkosh this year and potentially the rule in place within a year thereafter. That's, of course, the current schedule we're hoping for, and this is a rule that's been put off year after year after year for quite a while now. Yeah. How does Aspen fit into all that?
Well, with the, I feel like we offer a good solution in that market with an E5. You know, being able to do an E5 with the LSAs, and that allows a guy. You know, you don't have to have a backup attitude indicator. You don't have to have a vacuum pump. So we kind of get rid of those things. And from a cost perspective or cost point, it's very attractive as far as the market goes, and where that product falls in line. It's kind of an entry-level product, but it's a lot of bang for the buck. So I think the E5 would be a good solution for those guys.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when we actually get some activity in this.
Yeah.
There was a big spill of some rumored information about 2 years ago, and that's been all we've really had since. Of course, you know, the various committees have been working on it and so forth, but there's a lot of excitement built up with the fact that, okay, it's finally going to be here, so we shall see.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the more that we see added to our industry, more expansion, more offers out there, and just gives a path for more folks to join our industry, to get into aviation. It's a good thing, right? It's a good thing for all of us, and you know, we look forward to seeing that, hopefully. So,
well, Aspen has enjoyed a unique niche. It's what you came up with a form factor that nobody else has, and surprisingly nobody's copied.
Right.
Because it surprisingly, at first, and yet not surprisingly when you look at it in depth, fits in panels in a way nothing else will. When you're talking about retrofit panels, or you're talking about upgrades, or for the matter, one of the things we can do with you, which is unheard of with other glass panel upgrades, is you can incrementally upgrade.
That's right.
You can go from your first box to your first and second box to 3 boxes and just go absolutely nuts and drive tremendous capabilities, but not necessarily all with the same stab at the bank account.
Yeah.
Is this the winning solution for you for now, or will we see other form factors?
No, you know, you brought up a great point, Jim, and that's one of the key things to our success in this industry is that as a customer, you can come in, you do the entry-level product, and let's say next year you want to upgrade that to the next product. Well, instead of throwing out that product that you just put in a year ago, you're literally paying the price difference to bridge the gap between the two. And we allow those upgrades. So if you want to start off with 1 screen and go to 2 screens or 3 screens, that is one of our, in my opinion, one of the biggest attractions to Aspen, and the fact that when you buy the widget, you're not stuck with that widget forever. You can upgrade, and we give you the amount that you've already invested. And so all you're doing is paying the price difference, and people love that, obviously. So. And we also play real nice in the sandbox. We try to interface with everybody. So whatever you used as a navigator, whatever you used as an autopilot, we're going to interface with that for the most part. We as long as the other parties are willing to interface, we're willing to interface.
There you go.
So
willing to play nice?
Willing to play nice. We play, like I said, play nice in the sandbox.
Unlike a few others, yes. I get you there. Interesting. This next year, as the industry recovers and is pushing into the future, economy notwithstanding, how do you see the company positioned at this point? I mean, do you expect the acquisition and the assumption by Aero to be something that's still going to take a while, or are you guys ready to hit the ground running?
Yeah, and I'll say to that. I mean, it's not as much of an acquisition as it is from what I've been told, it's an agreement among companies, more of a merger. But I think it's going to allow us to position ourselves in a way to be prepared for the growth and have products in stock, be able to support our current customer base along with growing for the future. And it's exciting times for sure. We're all ready to kind of stretch our wings, if you will, get out and about and just get back to normalcy and be able to
normal this industry. Really?
Yeah. Well, my normal might be looking a lot different than others, but I've been doing this, like I said, with Aspen for 15 years.
Yeah,
and
we've worked together for a long time at this point.
It's been a long time. So, but yeah, I'm ready to get back to just normal day-to-day stuff, go out and seeing my friends and enjoying time with customers and working shows and doing what we love doing. So, it's exciting times ahead. I'm excited to be here. I know a lot of folks are back home as well, so we're looking forward to it.
See you at Lakeland?
We'll see you at Lakeland. See you guys next week at Lakeland. Come by and see us, come say hi, and we'd love to visit with you and chat with you and kind of show you what we can do to help upgrade your panel.
And how can people get more information on Aspen?
Go to our website. It's the easiest way. It's just aspenavionics.com. We also have our Facebook and Instagram accounts. I like doing about that. And make sure if you do have an Aspen, make sure to tag us in your post, and a lot of times we'll throw those up there and brag about you and show off your panel for you. We love highlighting our customers, spotlighting our customers, and just showing everybody what's out there and kind of what we're doing.
You've had some great customers doing some great things with the installations. I remember in particular one that was really impressive. I think he was one of your dealers. I'm trying to remember the name, but had a 3-panel installation and an Avion that was just absolutely gorgeous. I think it was up from north of you, up still in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Just one of the prettiest installations I ever saw on a classic aircraft, and yet the way it looked in there, it wasn't out of place. It just worked great. So
that's good to hear. Yeah,
pretty adaptable. Scott Smith from Aspen Avionics, our victim of the moment, and we will be right back with you in just a few moments. We're talking to Sean Deeker from Flight Cell. We've got some really interesting things from the New Zealand branch. In addition, we've got AEA's Rick Perry coming up on deck, Pete Ring from Toman, Chris Garberg from Aperio, Scott Philippin from CIS, Britt Wanick from Smart Sky, and Grant Sumter from Astronix to close out a roster that is jam-packed for the day. We'll be back in just a few moments. This is Aero-News live at the AEA convention in New Orleans. It's the 65th annual trade show and convention. We'll see you right back here in a minute.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
The LT is just another tick on your pre-flight checklist until you need it. Did you ever wonder what would happen if you had an engine failure over the mountains, marshland, or other dangerous terrain? Take to the skies confidently with the most reliable and highest performing ELTs and safety products on board that instantly mobilize life-saving search and rescue across the world. Read survivor stories from aviators and adventurers who survived life-threatening encounters thanks to ACR and RTEC's life-saving technology. Luck favors the prepared at survivorclub.com.
Vantage is Avidyne's family of all-new flight display systems for retrofit and forward-fit applications. Initial certification will be Vantage 12, retrofit glass for legacy Cirrus aircraft. Vantage 12 brings advanced capabilities and adds new life to Cirrus aircraft, including large 12-inch diagonal hybrid touchscreen displays, 3D synthetic vision, and split-screen capabilities. Additional Vantage programs will be announced in the future.
Well, hello, fellow pilot. I'm John King.
And I'm Martha King.
You know, we've all had our flying lives disrupted lately.
Well, King Schools is here to help you stay up to date with courses that you can access on your desktop, iPad, or iPhone. If you'd like a refresher or just want to expand your aviation horizons, we have a course for you.
So head over to kingschools.com/rusty today for details.
And one more time, you guys didn't learn anything before, you came back, here we are. This is the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show live from the Ernest Morial Convention Center in New Orleans. And we've been having some fun out here. I talked a little bit before about doing the Bourbon Street crawl with my wife, and of course the obligatory stop at Café du Monde for beignet and café au lait and so forth. And yeah, we struggled out of there and had to walk about, 2 miles back to the hotel and everything else, and it was a real crawl. But then again, that's what you do in New Orleans. At any rate, a couple items of housekeeping, since I've gotten some emails here while we've been doing the broadcast. 3 big things. One, we will be, of course, live at Sun and Fun all next week at 0900 every morning. And then a lot of archival video and stories, because we are the Sun and Fun Digital Daily. We are the Sun and Fun media partner. We will also be fulfilling a role a week or two later at the AUVSI Exponential, and we'll talk about that probably during Sun and Fun. But 0900 every morning, airborne-live.net, you'll be able to see the morning brief. Combination of what's happened, what's going to happen throughout the day, and an interview or two to keep people up to speed on what's happening. 2, questions about our annual April 1st edition. As you know, on April 1st, most years, with the exception of one, we decide to go a little crazy. We have a lot of fun. We do just a phenomenal amount of parody stories. And this year, what we've decided, in honor of the fact that we got to be 25 years old, we turned 25 in November, that we've taken some of the best, not all the best, we're leaving some for maybe another year, but a bunch of the best stories from throughout that 25 years, and we're going to present them Friday with the time and date stamps so you understand when this happened and so forth. And some of these things were really crazy. One of our salespeople, Marino, and I were looking over some of these things Monday night, and we were laughing so hard our stomach hurt. Stuff I haven't looked at in a decade. It's funny stuff. One final piece of information, waiting on some paperwork here now, but for those of you who remember, I was the executive director of the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation, one of Bob's dearest friends, and he certainly was of mine. And sometime next week, we'll be discussing how that foundation's coming back together, and it's been put back in my care. We have a lot of plans. I'm working with some exceptional people to make Bob's dream of an aviation that's professional and ethical and exciting and of value to the youth that are coming up through right now. We've got some big plans. I think you'll get a kick out of it. But let's get to business. We're here with FlightCell. FlightCell had an interesting product, a unique product, in the new product introduction presentations, one of 29, that occurred Monday. Sean Deeker is here, the key account and sales manager for the folks across the pond. Sean, what's new? Tell me about it, because this looks cool.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so this is as I did in the NPI, this is a new product that we're launching. It's a different product for FlightCell. Normally we've done SAT and cell comms, AFF, ATU tracking, data in the cockpit. This is something that we've developed through interaction and demand from our customers, looking to solve an issue that they'd been experiencing and some new regulatory mandates in the industry, especially around firefighting. So we also wanted to solve some other issues that we saw in the industry and add some functionality. So it's a cockpit video and audio recorder.
Okay.
We've gone for a bit of a different style of device from some of the others. We wanted to add some flexibility and options for our clients with having a completely separate camera, so it's light, robust and easy to install. And if the camera breaks or you want a different one, this is cheap and easy to replace.
Okay.
Where this is the brains of the operation. Your storage, your processing, while also offering some nice quality of life features.
Okay.
Being an Ethernet switch as well, so you can connect up a whole lot of devices in the cockpit, and paired with the DZMX, you've created a network in your aircraft, and the USB functionality too.
How would something like this be utilized though?
Well, the main thing that it's utilised for is the video and audio recording and the flight data recording as well. So it comes along with a nice little piece of software so that you can review your flights. You can review any near misses or incidents. If you've actually had a bad incident, you can review what's gone on, and training purposes obviously as well. There is some flexibility around it as well because you can support multiple cameras, and there's a live preview mode. So you can actually see footage from the cameras in real time in the aircraft. Yeah.
Okay.
We've got one client that wants to use it to look at what's on the hook or the snorkel for their tank.
Oh boy.
Because they can't see it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And another client that has it for the cabin crew to see the aircraft taking off and landing from the belly.
Okay. So obviously a lot of potential mission profiles. I mean, the immediate flight training, and we're seeing some applications out there, but they're kind of Rube Goldberg. They're minimal and cheap and not necessarily dependable. So taking a clean sheet approach to building a professional capability, especially in certain aspects of flight training that are, for lack of a better way to put it, not cheap.
Yeah.
If you're training people in complex aircraft and turbine aircraft, so forth and so on, being able to document all that is highly valuable. And then you mentioned some of your involvement with the special missions categories. I can't think of a single special mission profile that wouldn't like to have some way to document what they've done, look it over, go back to a scenario, or for that matter, critique something that's occurred, because that's how you stay alive.
Yeah. And it's actually been really popular in that special missions profile, especially firefighting.
Excellent.
Some of the pilots were even saying, I'll be able to compare myself to my colleagues and let's see who's the best. So it's become a competitive aspect, which is it's a nice attitude to have towards it, rather than being, I don't want to be filmed, or I don't want someone recording if I happen to make a little mistake. But flipping that on the, how do I improve what I'm doing? And have some good competitiveness between ourselves. Looking at it more from a safety and training aspect, really, because the day you stop training, you're not learning.
No.
And this industry, aviation, and especially avionics, it's always training.
What was the impetus behind this? Where did the thought come from? Where did the decision-making process come from? What was the design process to bring this product to market?
So the impetus for this was through some very close clients of ours who have direct relationships with our technical team and the founder at FlightCell, John Wiley. John does a lot of the product research and development, and he leads our technical team still to this day, even though he's the owner and CEO at FlightCell. He's still got his finger in that pie and is a very crucial part of our product development. So it came through his relationships with some very key pilots and operators in the industry that there was a mandate around this equipment, and they were a little bit shoehorned into some solutions that they didn't really like, and they wanted to see if we could provide another option. And that's the impetus and where it came from there. We also saw a need around some of the other aspects as well. We didn't just want to be a camera. We wanted to offer more functionality in the cockpit at a better price. And so there was things that we were already looking at developing, the gigabit Ethernet switch and the USB hub. We wanted that expandability for our current DZMX products too.
Now you mentioned that you're camera agnostic, that you could be operating other cameras for some aircraft that have them installed already. So you can adapt those to the system?
That's correct. Okay. So the cameras it supports USB cameras. It's a open MPEG format, video format.
Okay.
So we can take video from all sorts of cameras. If this one fails, or you've got a better camera already, or you want an external camera, no problem, it'll just take the data.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Very good. What markets are you targeting initially?
Fire's been the initial target.
Talk about an environment where there's just no room for screwing up.
That's right. It's like war, really, and fires are run like war. And,
I am aware.
Yeah. There's a couple of mandates here in the States and in New Zealand around that, and we see it happening around the rest of the world. We'll be following suit too.
Fascinating. I'm curious to see, what I need to do is have you come back in a year and tell me how these are being utilized, where they're being utilized, and some of the stories that are coming out of it. So,
yeah. And I'd love to be able to have some clients with some amazing footage.
That'd be great.
Some good stories to share as well. I'm sure we will.
Wonderful. Now, as it stands right now, availability is?
May.
Outstanding. Okay. Costs?
$6.5 for the hub and $500 per camera.
Boy, that's like GoPro pricing.
Yeah.
There you go. Can't beat that.
Close.
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure that we
came until you get to the Best Buy discount. But
yeah, that's right. We wanted to make sure it was affordable and accessible for even single engineer craft.
Very much so. All righty. Well, it's a fascinating process. I'm glad to see somebody paying attention and pioneering a whole new aspect of the industry. I'll be very curious to see who the early adopters are, where it is, and things of that nature. Where can people get more information on the product?
Absolutely. Our website, flightcell.com. Please reach out to us through there. We're happy to talk about it. Or on our stand here at AEA, if you're here in the building.
Very good. Sean, we sure appreciate your time. Folks, we are live at the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. We're going to take a short break, and we have got Rick Perry on deck. Rick is AEA's Mr. Regulation, Mr. Washington. Wind him up, stand back, and let him go. It's kind of fun to watch him because in no uncertain terms, he's a guy who knows what's going on in the Puzzle Palace at Washington and can tell you how to wade through a regulatory environment that is basically clogged to the gills. So we'll be back in just a moment. We thank Sean Deeker from FlightCell, their key account and sales manager, and keep an eye on this one. I think we're going to see this product a lot down the line. Special missions people, this is your box. Be right back, live, 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show, New Orleans. See you in a minute. There we go, folks. We are back. Going to be brief. It's Rick Perry. He's the guy who knows where all the bodies are buried in Washington. May have buried one or two of them himself. Mr. Regulation, Rick, what's the hot topic right now up at the Puzzle Palace?
Oh, goodness. Well, I think the media has reported pretty well the 147 interim final rule that was published. Long time in the coming, you know. I think I've probably worked on it, pieces of it anyway, for the better part of 30 years. So trying to see that finally come to fruition is kind of nice. Overall, pretty good regulation, performance-based. Looks like the FAA is kind of getting out of their own way on this one. Recognizing schools as schools, accreditation, giving benefit for accreditation, stuff like that, and allowing the modernization. So I think overall, I'd give them a pretty good grade for this one.
Okay.
On the negative side of it, I'm not thrilled when Congress regulates.
Who is?
Well, and that's what happens when you get frustrated with the FAA, and so you go to Congress and you lobby Congress to put some pressure on the FAA, and then Congress ends up regulating and dictating that you will do a regulation and it will say X, Y, and Z, and then it's not an FAA thing. It's a Congress to executive branch agencies, and the next thing you know is that you end up with a regulation where the agency has no more control over it. We see that the most obvious, and something AEA is not involved with, but as aircraft owners we are, and that's the unleaded fuel. Everybody wants to point to EPA and blame EPA for it, but it's not EPA. It is the Clean Air Act, the law, that dictates it. And it's
unintended and secondary consequences.
Unintended consequences of a well-intended idea. And the end result is that you can't work with the agency anymore to solve problems.
No.
And so overall, regulation's great. The process of doing it, I'm not thrilled with.
I don't doubt it. How do we fix that? Is there a way?
Well, we, AEA, generally don't lobby Congress to manage the FAA. Okay?
Yeah.
It's just a personal decision. It's not that we don't support a lot of the things that they're doing, certainly, pressures and stuff, but, it's not a pathway we prefer. We prefer the agency's pathway to manage things.
Ouch.
So, but that's the hot topic. The drone world was pretty thrilled with the Beyond Visual Line of Sight ARC report that came out.
Yeah.
Honestly, no surprises. Don't know how far it'll go.
Yeah.
There's some elements in there that are clearly pro unmanned vehicles, uncrewed vehicles.
But to the detriment of manned aircraft, in some cases.
To the challenge of staffed or crewed aircraft, yes. There's elements in there that they have to work out the details of. And I like leveraging the technology that they highlighted as part of the report. I don't know that the technology is mature enough to fully do everything it's talking about, but fundamentally, the idea of leveraging technology as we move forward, moving away from 1950s and 60s and 70s prescriptive technologies, those things make sense. And so, as always, the details are what matters. We'll see what happens. But this is a recommendation. This is an ARC report that goes into the agency. And you never know what the outcome is of those. And I fully expect that the agency will adopt those pieces that make sense. They will probably reject those pieces that are fundamentally against the Civil Aviation Act. But but also hopeful that they can read it with an open eye to the possibilities of technological solutions. You know, I think that's huge.
Well, let me ask you this. We've had a little bit of a curveball thrown at us when Steve Dixon decided that it was time for him to end his helming of the agency. Now we've got acting administrators, not one but two technically,
Yeah.
and so forth. Is this a hiccup? Is this a temporary measure? What's going to be happening, and what effect does it have on businesses as usual?
So, if you remember, wasn't too many years ago where the administrator was renewed at every administration. And if you go back, and I did this when
Prior to the 5-year term.
Prior to the 5-year term. And the reality is that part of the reason we went to the 5-year term is because we struggled with the turnover. It took a year or so for the new administration to identify the new administrator. So we were only getting 2 and 3 years from an administrator anyway.
Yeah.
It is the professional staff.
Not a great way to run an agency.
No, and that's what the 5-year term was, and it was to bridge the politics of the administrations. And so, you know, I went back when the administrator announced his retirement, and I kind of went back and looked at what the turnover had been of administrators, and honestly, this isn't out of the norm.
Yeah.
Okay, and so his announcement of his retirement is fine. It makes sense.
Okay.
If you look at the resume, now, you know, Billy Nolan had just been hired to replace Ali Barami. Phenomenal qualifications. You know, his resume is unbelievable when you actually go and look at it.
Oh no, it's amazing.
And so when he replaced Ali, highly qualified for that job. And so honestly, I wasn't surprised to see him fleeted up as the acting administrator, okay? Hugely qualified for it. Aeronautical Society fellow, a lot of airline background, a lot of military background. He just checks off all the boxes. So I'm very confident with that. I had worked with him when he was with A4A.
Okay.
Back in the days, Airlines for America. And, you know, pleasure to work with, and very level-headed and very, very solid. So I feel good about that. What you were talking about with the 2 actings,
Yeah.
Brad Mims has been the deputy all along.
Yeah.
And what I kind of read into the press release is kind of a co-administrator.
Yeah.
Rather than really 2 actings, okay?
Which is a bit of a departure.
It is a bit of a departure, but I have to say a logical one.
Good.
You know, for Brad to pick up the management of the organization and the infrastructure, while Billy takes on the face and the politics, it actually makes sense. Because the decisions that are made for the infrastructure and the organization are going to be long-term decisions. And so having, you know, Brad Mims' timeline, experience, familiarity with the agency will do nothing but be positive for that.
Okay.
So I actually support what they're doing. I think it's fantastic.
Well, there you go. Well, if it's got the Rick Perry seal of approval.
They didn't call ahead of time, I'm just saying.
Oh, well, that was a mistake.
You know.
I mean, seriously. One thing I wanted to chat with you about a little bit, because it's been brought up a couple of times. There is the massive rumor, of course, is that we will see significant changes to aircraft certification as a result of the evolution of what was light sport, what's turned into a variety of different names and categories and word salad. And they're talking about giving us guidelines at Oshkosh this year. with the potential of a rule a year later.
Okay.
Where do you see all this going right now? What are your concerns?
Well, you're talking about Mosaic.
Yeah.
And it's okay to use Mosaic because it's the modernization of special airworthiness certificates.
Like I said, word salad.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mosaic was first introduced to address some of the shortcomings of the light sport rule years ago. Upgrade a little bit of the experimental amateur build stuff, the EAB world. And that was the focus. And then Congress, again, legislatively mandating that the agency address the certification of unmanned drones, unmanned aircraft drones. And also the AAM.
Uncrewed,
whatever the world is these days, I'm sorry. But also the AAM, the Advanced Air Mobility Aircraft, because we've got these new technologies coming about, and we're dealing with a legacy certification philosophy. And so Congress basically told the FAA we need to modernize these certification rules. So those elements of it are pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of surprises at the LSA side of things. And because most of the LSA side is actually going through the LSA ASTM committee, we're really pretty aware of what the recommendations are from that arena. The rest of it's being done behind the curtain. And that's the part where we just don't, they can't share as much because it's active rulemaking. And so we're not getting a lot of information. Now, if they intend to have a public meeting about Mosaic at Oshkosh to where they have a stenographer taking notes and questions and answers are all end up in the Federal Register, that's great, that's fantastic. However, that's the only way they can really talk about that rulemaking. And so they're going to have some infrastructure there. There's a couple of elements in the flight standards side of things, and we don't know what's coming out in there, and that's what keeps me up at night. We know that, as was pointed out in the BV Loss ARC rule, that Part 91 doesn't adequately address autonomy. It has human language in it, not technology language. And so we know that 91 needs to be upgraded quite a bit. We know that to be effective in a lot of the for on-demand activity, the 135 community, there's a lot of 135 regulations that are, again, human-centric, that have to be updated to be able to address this new technology. We know that for the ultra-small, under 55-pound aircraft, that an A&P certificate is probably overkill. And so, the reality is that a UAS repairman is likely to come out of this, which will be, unlike LSA, which is a super light personal aircraft, and honestly too light in a number of areas. I think that the UAS repairman will be more product specific, so the amount of training will be commensurate with whichever product you're working on, which I think is a pretty good approach to this. And it's going to create a new pathway into aviation, which is anytime we can recruit young people to come into this industry, it's a great thing, right?
Amen to that.
The area of concern is as we look at this next generation of aircraft, we cannot dismiss 100 years of aviation. And
kind of hard to ignore it, isn't it?
Well, and as much as we want to be able to embrace technology and embrace a lot of the things that are being brought to the table today, which we truly like, we love, at the same time, if a 135 operator gets to leverage a low-cost maintenance technician in support of their operations. Manned aircraft 135 operations have to be able to take advantage of the same low-cost repairman. If you're going to discount some of the human requirements in manned 135 operations, or in unmanned 135 operations, you have to be able to discount those same things in manned, because otherwise you're giving a competitive advantage to a new aircraft. And that's an unfair advantage business-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the things that
and
we
somebody could really make a lot of that at some point.
Well, and you look at EMS with helicopter operations, you look at pipeline patrol, power line patrols, these things that are done today with a human pilot and a legacy aircraft. The logistical support of those aircraft is pretty significant. And to say, oh, well, we've got this new entrant into the marketplace, so we're going to give this economic advantage to these new aircraft and discount the existing operations. That's just it's a competitive unfairness that is not allowed in regulations. And so when these rules come out, we're going to be watching them very closely and communicating with the membership. I know that NATA, the National Air Transportation Association, is watching it closely in defense of their existing 135 operations. I know that the Helicopter Association is watching it, again, to make sure that the traditional helicopter operations aren't discounted as we move forward into this new generation. And that's the balance, and it's not an easy balance, but that's the balance the agency has to meet. And so whether we meet the rule by the end of the year or not is really going to be dependent on how they can work out those balances.
Well, it's certainly interesting to watch the industry churn it all out day after day, especially with 2.5 years of abnormal operations, shall we say. We're certainly getting back to it in a fairly speedy way. The big question now is how much changed in this last 2.5 years, how we get into it from here on out, and now with an industry that's ready to be going and growing again, can we?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Well, there you go.
The last 2.5 years have forced us to use technology.
Big time.
That industry has been requesting for 2 decades. And so it has springboarded us into a much more efficient process than we had before the pandemic. And this is worldwide. And so I believe firmly that the next decade is going to benefit from the last 2 years.
Well, we shall see. Rick Perry, I can't tell you how much we appreciate the chance to talk to you. I know you got a hard break and a place to get off to, and
I do.
People to see and hopefully upset. So we'll see what's going on.
Sounds
Rick
good.
Perry, AEA's man in Washington, Mr. Regulation, and frankly, the guy we call when we can't get real answers from anybody. Rick, thank you so much for everything.
My pleasure.
All righty, folks, we're going to take a little bit longer break here. We've got a lot of commercial messages, but we've also got a bit of an interesting message from the Hoover Foundation. I'll be talking about that off and on throughout the day. And we look forward to getting back to you here in just a few moments. We are live at the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest M. Morial Convention Center, right off of Convention Center Boulevard. We'll be right back.
Few who love aviation aren't familiar with the name Robert Anderson Bob Hoover, one of the most respected and beloved figures in the aviation world. He lived a life of purpose, integrity, and accomplishment that remains the envy of the aerospace community. He was a military aviator, test pilot, air show demonstration pilot, and lifelong aviation advocate who gave us decades of great stories and legends to remember and cherish, and left us with a critically important mission to undertake. The primary caretaker for that mission is the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation. The foundation is a 501c3 tax-deductible organization. The foundation was established by Bob prior to his passing in the fall of 2016 in order to perpetuate his dedication to excellence, integrity, learning, and mentorship by financially supporting educational institutions, offering scholarships, and inspiring the next generation of American aviation leadership. In addition to financial support, Bob's wish was that the foundation would provide enhanced safety training, mentoring, and networking opportunities through partnerships with other aviation and aerospace organizations adhering to the same basic precepts. Over the past few years, the foundation has been fine-tuning its mission and is in the process of adding many important initiatives to support and enhance Bob's directives. In late 2018, the Foundation embarked on a program to seek U.S. Postal Service recognition of the legendary Bob Hoover with the issuance of a commemorative postage stamp around what will be the 100th anniversary of his birth. While Bob never sought such honors throughout his life, this program is one way to keep Bob's memory alive and bring renewed attention to the mission of the Foundation. We hope this effort will enhance the future for flyers and other aviation professionals who might someday follow Bob's example. Other programs and objectives are under consideration by the Foundation's board, though expansion of the award, scholarship, and education programs are at the forefront of the objectives that are destined to make Bob's mission a prominent and critical part of augmenting aviation's future. The Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation welcomes your interest, support, and participation as we build on the incredible legacy left to us by an uncommonly gifted man who loved nothing more than to see the world of aviation grow and prosper.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Hi, Devin Gall here, one of your True Blue Power field service engineers.
Hi, I'm Ryan Reed with True Blue Power.
Think about how much better your back is going to feel when lifting 40 pounds less up here when changing the battery out.
As a pilot that flies behind these batteries, walking up to your aircraft knowing your engine's going to start every time is unlike any other battery.
Vantage is Avidyne's family of all new flight display systems for retrofit and forward fit applications. Initial certification will be Vantage 12, retrofit glass for legacy Cirrus aircraft. Vantage 12 brings advanced capabilities and adds new life to Cirrus aircraft, including large 12-inch diagonal hybrid touchscreen displays, 3D synthetic vision, and split screen capabilities. Additional Vantage programs will be announced in the future.
Introducing the new ELT 345 from Artex. This emergency locator transmitter, or ELT, boasts an industry-low price, while providing the same quality and performance on which the Artex brand was built. GPS data is embedded within the first emergency transmission and provides search and rescue personnel with the aircraft location within 100 meters in less than a minute. Take to the skies knowing you have the highest performing and reliable equipment on board. View our selection of ELTs and safety products at www.artex.com. Artex, your best last chance.
Are you ready to ace your FAA drone pilot knowledge test, get your remote pilot certificate, and start earning money? Well, flying a drone is a great tool that can open up new business opportunities for anyone. Realtor, insurance adjuster, videographer, or commercial weekend drone warrior, you need to fly legally. Whether you're pursuing your initial Part 107 remote pilot certificate or you need a renewal, King Schools has a course just for you. So start learning today at kingschools.com.
Alrighty, folks, we are back. Thanks for enduring with us through a short break here, which I got a chance to wolf down a quick sandwich. 3 hours straight here is a bit of a roll, but hey, we're having fun. I am pleased to present Pete Ring. Pete, you and I have known each other a long time in a bunch of roles.
Yep.
I mean, you're just kind of like one of the Marvel superheroes, just different capes, different days, right?
I'm not going to say that, but if you do, I'll allow it.
There you go. Pete, you did a presentation in the NPI this week on behalf of Toman. What's the latest and greatest there? Let's start there, and then we'll talk a little bit about the industry, especially since you cover this industry in great depth.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Well, Toman's an interesting company. They've been around for a very long time, dating back to the early 1900s, actually. And getting their start in the avionics world by making the first chronograph for the Swiss Air Force in 1916. So they've been around a long time.
That's serious time and grade.
It's a lot of history there. Mm-hmm. They've been very successful throughout the years with the mechanical instruments, and they went into the digital age, and have had tremendous success with air data computers for all different types of aircraft, from fixed wing rotorcraft, fast jets, and everything in between. We're in the process of pivoting the business a little bit and getting a little bit more involved into the display replacement business of taking CRT displays and upgrading them to LCD displays. And it's not just CRTs that we're doing. There's a lot of legacy LCDs out there as well that are still good avionics that need some refreshing because of the display on the front. For either there's an obsolescence issue with the display, or it's broken and it can't be supported anymore. But the technology in the unit is still good and still viable, so we've defined a plan in order to be able to upgrade those units and continue to have the aircraft be airworthy. And it's a fraction of a cost compared to doing a new panel upgrade, and we're talking not the lower end of the market, but in your business jets and up even into your commercial aviation type stuff, where cost becomes an issue for this. It can be millions of dollars to put a new panel on one of those, and updating the unit with LCD is going to be a fraction of that price.
It's an interesting company with an interesting history. I remember getting a briefing several years ago where they're looking at the deep dark history way back when, and it's amazing that a company that started with that kind of vision winds up in so many different avenues now. Where do you see Toman going from here?
Well, I think with the display business, and a lot of that display capabilities is done in-house, so they're one of the few companies that actually has an ability to cut LCD in-house.
Really?
They can actually take the commercial LCD and custom cut it to any specific size that the customer requires. So I see that display replacement business gaining traction. I also see Toman creating more native complete solution products around the display world in the MFD replacement business. There's a lot of there's still CRT radar indicators out there, and
oops,
yeah. So having replacements for those, there's not a lot of companies that make just a dedicated MFD that has radar capabilities anymore. So there's some white space in the market, and I think there's a good opportunity there. There's in-trail operations for ADS-B for the airlines where they need dedicated displays for that, and we're starting to bid some programs into that market as well. So there's a lot of things revolving around the display capabilities of the business that I think are growth opportunities for Tom.
Imagine it's quite an educational process to deal with clientele that may not be fully aware or want to be fully aware of some of the failure modes and longevity issues with technology that has been okay working so far. And that's a great thing until all of a sudden, blip.
Yeah, and the good thing is CRTs have done a lot of that work for us in terms of failing periodically for everybody at some point. So that's anybody that's flown with CRTs.
Quite a few of us have that story.
Yes. Yeah, so the CRTs with their failures, it makes it easier when you go, well, we can replace it with an LCD, and you see that light bulb go off, and it immediately makes that connection for you.
And especially when you start looking at comparative mean time between failures, weight, maintenance costs.
Weight's a huge one.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
It's
and power consumption.
Oh boy, yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That even come to mind, but the minute you said, boing, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Interesting.
We're going to buy it right here.
Well, it sounds like you've got yourself a big niche to work on. That's going to be fun to watch and see what areas you pioneer in that regard. What are the questions that are coming up? What is you think the biggest areas you have to overcome in order to bring this kind of technology to a potential client?
So the technology is doing this sort of work is it's fairly straightforward. I've been a part of a lot of programs throughout the years that have been highly technical in terms of designing things that don't exist. But LCD technology has been around for a while, and
vapor tech.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. So the technology to actually do it is fairly easy. The challenge becomes on the certification side of things to get things on board, but we've done quite a bit of research and talked to a lot of folks that are substantially smarter than I am, and they've assured me that this can be done and have laid out what that path looks like in order to make that happen.
Much of the avionics world right now is being imperiled, if you will, by supply chain issues. How is someone doing in that regard?
The nice thing is, a lot of the supply chain issues are for a lot of the manufacturers. A lot of the avionics manufacturers are manufacturers here in the U.S. Toman is a manufacturer that's in Europe, so it's using a completely different supply chain pool. And we've had minor issues, honestly. We've gone from...
there are a bunch of people really jealous of you right now.
Yeah, the worst it really got was about 9 weeks for us. And it's
that's a blip on the radar, man.
Yeah, it's
compared to some of these. Like, oh yeah, talk to us next year. Yeah, no.
That's been a common discussion walking around here with other manufacturers in the dealer network too, and they can't get product to serve their customers.
Oof. That's it's been a tough bit for the industry to say the least. We've been, we had 2.5 years of okay, what's next, followed by the economy trying to ramp up and coming up against certain roadblocks and other issues that are coming up, and changes in the regulatory environment, now changes in the regulators, and so forth and so on. So it's we're kind of waiting for things to smooth out, and it just won't quite let us get there yet.
Yep, absolutely.
Oof, crazy. What's your observation on this particular show? You've been a big part of a lot of different aspects of this industry. What are you seeing right now?
I'm seeing a lot of people really getting focused on the connectivity side for the aircraft, and not just, largely connectivity has been an airline and a business jet thing, but you're starting to see that sort of trickle down into, your turboprops and your twin engines, and even some corner cases of a high performance piston single guy, if they've got the money, is willing to do it. So I think that's for this industry, barring any unforeseen government issued regulations. I think there's going to be a big push into that market, and we're already seeing it. That's what shops are busy doing.
Yeah.
Those companies that produce those products are having overwhelming success. There's still a place for display services and new displays in the marketplace with everything that you see across the board. And there's some really cool things out here. But the guys that are have pretty big crowds in their booth are the guys that have the connectivity and have the cabin displays. And there's some sexy displays that are here for the cabin display companies, and they're doing some innovative things that are kind of interesting to see.
Interesting stuff. At various times, you've had a role in AEA itself, played a pivotal role in a couple of cases. How do you see the health of the organization?
I think the organization's going in a new direction, and it feels like there's a new, renewed energy within the organization. And you're starting to see more things and seeing more effort put into the workforce side of the organization, with committees being formed for the workforce committee to not only get younger folks more involved in aviation, but get people from adjacent industries that have similar skills and get them involved in aviation. And I think there's a big push for that. The energy feels good, I think. I think the future looks bright, and I think we're just starting at the very beginning of where this industry is going in the future. And I think it's up and to the right, and going to be shocking a lot of people with some of the innovations that come in terms of market access and reaching new technologies, especially with the UAS market coming online. The UAS is largely electric.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, there are two things that are affecting the industry. One is the fact that there could be a pretty strong paradigm in what we fly and how we use it. But the part that I find most immediately exciting is the fact that there are some new technologies that are in development that are filtering through to the rest of us really quickly. Yeah. I'm involved, excuse me, in flight test on a couple of these vehicles right now, and I mean, every time I show up for a pre-brief and this, that, and the other, I'm just kind of going, okay, what did you do this time? And it's extraordinary. It really is. I mean, there isn't anything that isn't up for grabs right now.
Yeah.
That's
well, and it's interesting too. Like every 10, 15 years, there's a new big thing that happens in aviation. Whether it's the UAS stuff right now. A handful of years ago, it was the VLJs. And while the VLJ thing didn't exactly go the way everyone sort of predicted it at the very beginning of it, with darkening the skies with so many jets everywhere, but there was a lot of technology that came out of there.
Big time.
There was innovation that came out of there, and a lot of that stuff gets applied into other segments of this marketplace. And by and large, I think we're going to see a lot of that in the UAS marketplace, where you'll see there's a lot of good narrative around it. There's a lot of money being spent into that, which means there's a lot of innovation that's happening into that marketplace. And you'll see a lot of great technology that comes out of that marketplace that may not be just in the unmanned segment, maybe in new ways of doing the manned segment, new ways of doing remote control operations and various different things.
I think in terms of aircraft control and control systems, I think we're going to see stuff that's just going to boggle the mind.
Yep.
Really going to be something. Pete, I got to tell you, I always enjoy a chance to chat with you, even though it's been few and far between lately.
My pleasure.
Especially when you're out getting a real job and stuff. So do what you got to do. But at least you're playing with great toys, so that doesn't hurt at all.
Yeah.
Pete Ring, who has been a big part of the AEA community, now representing Thomann. We will be back in just a few moments. I think we've got, let's see, Apereo, CIES, Smart Sky, and Astronics on deck through the end of the day, at which point we're beating feet out of here in a big way because there's a storm coming, by the way. We'll be right back. We're at the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show, live from the Ernest Morial Convention Center in New Orleans. See you in right a minute. Folks, we are back, and we're saving some of the best for last. Again, this is the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show from the New Orleans Convention Center. For some reason, I want to keep saying Las Vegas. I just
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, well, for some, we just did one at MBAA and everything else, and it always seems to go back there. For some reason or other, that's the default. Go figure. Folks, we've got some great stuff here on deck, but first let's talk to Aperio's Chris Garberg. What's new?
Well, what's new is flight data monitoring for us. We've had a flight data monitoring product for many years called the Vision 1000, and we really wanted to change that up a little bit and add some new features. So we released this AIRS 400 here this year. It's certified with the FAA. We've already been shipping it and installing it in a lot of rotorcraft, of course, but some fixed wing. And really pushes the boundaries of a safety management system and a flight operations quality assurance program. One of the neat things we did with this, for one, put in a 4K video camera, so It's a real nice picture, nice video imaging, but we've got wireless offload.
Okay.
One of the challenges with flight data, if you're not getting the data and consuming it into a program, especially on a timely basis, the data's old or that gets missed. So we made it where it offloads wirelessly over a cellular network. So aircraft lands, powers down, and this connects to a cell modem or cell network, offloads the flight data into our flight data monitoring software called Envision. And then the safety managers or whoever's managing the flight data can view the data, run it against event triggers, and really help with the safety of the flight department. Of course, one thing is accident investigation. We don't like to investigate accidents, but if we can learn from that accident, that helps. But the biggest thing is
in any accident investigation, there's never anything such as not too much information.
Right.
There's an investigator out there who isn't looking for more. So something like this along the lines can be pretty powerful.
It is. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So
4K is worth how much?
Yeah, 4K is worth a lot. And then you talk about video, right? How many seconds and minutes you get, and it's in the millions, right? So it's worth a lot of words. And so you get to, with the camera and the audio, you really understand. And then it's a blend. You want all the data, flight data. Audio and video makes a big difference. So
does this correlate against any of the flight data? Is there any correlation or cooperation with other systems?
So this captures about 13 different flight parameters, all internally.
Okay.
We do have an AirInc 429 receiver in here, so you can connect to a avionics bus, a 429 bus, to be able to pull off hundreds of parameters if you wanted to.
Holy smokes!
And run events against those. But yeah, full self-contained unit, so it's real easy to install. Fairly low cost when it comes to the airplane world. But yeah, the value of lives now is I know it's hard to put a value on a life, but it keeps going up, right? And we want to save more lives.
Well, especially since in any accident or incident scenario, it's one thing to explain what happened, it's another to avoid the next iteration.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we want to learn from it. And there's many accidents we've been party to that we've learned information on. We've changed training programs, policies inside of flight departments that said, let's not do that again. And that's the best thing to do.
What is the decision process that occurs at a company like yours when you're looking at a potential new product? It's one of the things I find fascinating. Why do you build something like this? What was the impetus behind it? What was the process in getting it to market? Who did you talk to? What are the things that make up your process? Because some of the stuff you've done in the past has been pretty pivotal. Sporties will tell you they've made a fortune off of you guys.
They have, yeah. So we find a market and a need in a market, and sometimes you could interview customers or pilots, aircraft owners, and they maybe don't know, right? Like what that next thing would be because they just haven't seen the technology yet. So when we created the original Stratus, ADS-B was just getting talked about.
How many million of those did you build? Or so it seemed.
we don't tell you, but it's a lot. Yeah, it's still
they're everywhere.
It's still selling great. Actually, to this day, we're on the third version of it. Mm-hmm. But that product didn't exist, and XM Weather did. So you could get in a TCAS system. Well, for myself to put a TCAS and a Sirius XM or an XM receiver in my aircraft, it was expensive. So we created a module, the Stratus, that was using the FAA's ADS-B system, and there's no subscription, and it game changed. It had a certified GPS, and you're getting weather and traffic and attitude information at the fingertips of you, and you just didn't have that before. So now you had glass cockpit almost to an iPad.
At a cost factor that was unheard of.
Yeah, in the hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, right?
What cracked me up was seeing a friend of mine with a little Kit Fox, all well equipped and everything else, and he had everything. He had every piece of information you could ever want. And a bloody Kit Fox.
Right, right.
Funny.
Yeah, I mean, we have some airline customers that still use Stratus. The Blue Angels fly with Stratus, right? We just had to get them some more units. They use them on their cross-country flights, and you're talking sophisticated aircraft, but they want to have, the situational awareness and backup, attitude and the traffic and the weather. And so, when we go into looking at a product, it's like, what can we actually make a difference on? Stratus, the original Stratus products made a big difference. And then we forayed into a transponder because that was, a requirement. But you look at every one of our products as our safety enhancing products. Stratus for sure has saved lives, by having that information at your fingertips. Flight data recorders saves lives. Every one of our products we have is a safety enhancing product. Even a USB power charger, because we're flying with devices nowadays. Yeah. Your phones, your iPads, and whatever, you keep them charged. So it's
and added some redundancy to everything.
Absolutely.
There's no such thing as enough.
Yeah.
The current industry is talking about issues with supply chain and finding employees, and either one, getting properly trained people, or worse, properly trained people who want to work. And this has been a theme throughout the last couple of days. How's it going by you?
Very similar things. So I'm on the AEA board here, and we had our board meeting on Sunday, and that was two large topics. Workforce development is a challenge, right? We need to develop the workforce and get them to come into aviation. And it's not one group. The AEA board, the AEA group can't do that themselves. Gamma does the same thing. AOPA is trying to. It's a team effort here where we need every single one to try to promote aviation to younger generations, even military programs, people coming out of the military to get into avionics business. But it's awareness thing. When people think you're in aviation, like, oh, what do you fly for? I'm like, no, I'm a pilot, but I'm a president of an avionics company, right? You can be in marketing, you can be in sales, you can be in engineering, you can be in product support. But yeah, workforce development is a key going forward. We have many positions open that we can't fill. And then the parts challenges are continuing to get worse, in my view. And one of the challenges, I think, of that is it's actually causing a disruption of innovation, meaning we're not actually working on as many new projects right now as I would like to, because current engineers are working on getting products and parts to work on our existing products. Mm-hmm. So you're taking engineering dollars and time to spend on just replacing an FPGA from this model to this model and write code to make this work instead of working on the next new product. And the prices, we've seen 500% increase on certain parts.
You're not the first person to mention that.
Yeah, I had for an example, at a $23 part on a product of ours, we did a parts buy at $750.
Whoa.
And we're just happy to get them, right? Yeah. And these aren't products that we make a lot of money on, right? It's challenging.
Not anymore,
and
anyway.
It changes every day, right? So one day you say we can get 200 of this part, the next day it's like, actually you can't. It's different. So it's our purchasing team, which we've had to grow, is saying that we have many months to well into next year where we think maybe it's going to start easing up, and it's not looking good.
What could help? Where are the solutions?
I think some of the things that are driving it is some of the workforce, right? There's less people that are working in these. The factories did shut down. There's actually Chinese factories right now that are shut down again because of COVID this week. They have this zero tolerance policy. So, and then the demand is the highest, right? Every device, look at all the devices you have around here, right? They all have this similar components, and that keeps increasing. The cars, all the car companies, all the mobile devices, everything we have has got electronic components in it. And so the demand is as an all-time high and is going to continue to increase. And then we've got less people that want to work in these electronics industries or in factories building products. So, and it takes a lot of money to spin up a fab shop. It's like a $10 billion investment. So and it takes a year to 2 years, and so it's challenging. And I don't know the exact answer, but some of it is we got to increase the capacity.
So what's next for y'all?
Continuing to innovate with new technologies. We're still going down more flight data monitoring products. You'll see hopefully some new announcements here later this year on another product, but a lot of it's in software using artificial intelligence. So you can start predicting, predicting the way people are flying and how to really and increase the safety of that. But that's the big part of it right now.
AI is another term that's getting thrown around a lot, and there have been some very interesting applications. Avidyne with Pilot Eye and a number of others that are choosing to really innovate on the leading bleeding edge, and it's fun to see. And more important than anything else, I think it's the kind of thing that's going to keep the U.S. market in particular competitive. So we'll see how that goes down the line. Any special announcements for Oshkosh per se?
There will not be any new announcements at Oshkosh as of right now. So,
bummer.
Well, I had the Sun and Fun this week, and then next week, and then prepare for Oshkosh. But as of right now, probably not any new announcements yet.
Well, we'll see you at Sun and Fun. We're Sun and Fun's digital daily, and their media partner, and we're just not going to be sleeping much for the next
one of my favorite
couple of
shows.
weeks. I enjoy it. I continue to enjoy it. The nice part is that the transition to new leadership could not have been better. When I talked to Lights and they finally let us in on who the new guy was going to be, and we find out Gene Conrad, who we've known for a number of years and is a 30-year Oshkosh volunteer and the whole bit, and somebody who's really one of us, it's obvious that the organization's going to be in good hands. And I've talked to Gene probably about a dozen times in the last couple of weeks, and he's drinking from the fire hose.
I'm
but
sure,
he's excited about the potential, but he's also very impressed with his workforce and thinking about just what he needs to do to make their lives a little bit easier so they can do bigger and better things down the line. We'll see how that all works out. I would be very interested to see where you go with this, but I have to ask, what other technologies are attracting your interest?
I started on the artificial intelligence, so we can start doing similar to what Avidyne was looking at, but we can do object recognition. This product here, actually, with the image processor and we're using a Jetson Nano board in here, we can actually do like object recognition and optical gauge recognition. So you can recognize those things and then and superimpose them. But we also developed our own neural language model for speech recognition for aviation. So we believe we have the largest corpus of QA'd, transcribed aviation language right now. And so we have two different applications out there.
That's got to have some value.
Yeah, so we have two different applications out there that we're still continuing to have pilots fly with, and one's called Stratus Horizon Pro, and then our Stratus Insight, which is our electronic flight bag, like a ForeFlight competitor, Garmin Pilot competitor. But we do one of our differentiating factors with that is the voice recognition. So a pilot can, read basically any transmission coming over the radio. It records it just as an utterance, and it's just like text messages almost. Just looks at it. You can tap to replay the audio, but you can also read it. And so we're improving the performance of that, because that's only one. Once you have that language model really dialed in, then you can do a
big
lot
help
of other
when
things.
you screw up your clearances.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. A lot of times I don't have to sit and quickly write down those clearances because it's all same thing with the ADAS.
You are my new best friend.
Yeah.
Man.
It's a simple system, and we can, but complex behind the scenes, as engineering would say, but it's, as the pilot, and it's getting better with the accuracy.
Well, I'll be darned. I wasn't aware of some of the things you're working on, but that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We need to communicate a little bit better and keep an eye on making sure we get your news and so forth. Be sure to reach out. And of course, since we've got a number of venues, both through what we're doing with video, with audio, and with written digital and so forth. So we'd be very happy to get that information out to people, and more important, maybe do a deep dive with you one of these days and get a little bit more background on what y'all are up to.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for spending time with us here with Airborne and Aero-News. And folks, we're going to take a quick break. We've got a pretty interesting guest list from here on out. We're closing out the last hour with a bang, but we'll be back live with the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show from New Orleans. We'll be right back in just a few moments. See you then. And here we go. We are backing at it. We're down to the last hour of our 2022 coverage of the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show, live from the Ernest Morial Convention Center in New Orleans. We've had a really great time out here this week, but we are going to have to beat feet in a big way because we got a storm working its way out to us, and we got people leaving as quick as they can because apparently it's going to be a biggie. However, we have saved some of the best for last. I'm here with Scott Philippin from SAIS, and we've known you for the work you've done with fuel gauging and the like, but you guys have kind of branched out. Tell me what's new.
Well, way back when we decided to come up with a new sensor for measuring fuel level, we really identified, in fact, the patent identifies it. There were multiple different things that we could use this for, because basically what we were doing is building an intelligent angular position sensor. And so we've had some hits about utilizing it for flap control and for yaw damper on the Cirrus jet, but no, and for throttle position, but no one's really taken us up on it. A good friend of mine is working the program at Buy Aerospace.
Okay.
And he knew of the capabilities. And I said, I'd really like a shot at doing the throttle for an electric aircraft. I said, we have the mean time to failure on our fuel senders is over 90,000 hours. And we felt that with a dual sensor, we could achieve a 1 in a billion chance, which is what you want for throttle, level A in a Part 25, but that level of...
pretty critical control system.
Exactly. And things come together. I have a really good software team, and they're gelling together. They're really enjoying this because, you know, electronics and electrical power of some sort is going to be the future as aviation moves into, you know, further into this century. So they feel like they're part of something that's evolving, and it's worked out really well. I'm really happy with the result. It's everything that we thought it would be from a feel standpoint. It's still in a prototype stage, but it's really quite well done. And I'm saying that not as it's my product, but I'm really proud of what my people came up with.
Well, you obviously wouldn't put the energy into it, energy and resources into it if you didn't believe in it. Where do you see your initial implementations?
The electric aircraft component is really the first application, but we've gotten a lot of interest. It's pretty interesting and very nice. I made just a small post on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago, and very nicely Jack Pelton at AEA joined in and said, hey, you know, great work from one of the most innovative companies in general aviation. And you know, when
Jack knows one or two things about this, yes.
Yeah, so that gained us some pretty large exposure. We've had a lot of interest, not only, and I believe its application in electric aircraft, but really it's a fly-by-wire system. So if there were a FADEC or there were some other sort of component to be attached to, it really is a throttle that could apply a fly-by-wire in a solution and a price point that's acceptable for general aviation.
The electric revolution is a big storm, lack of a better way to put it. People don't really know how to deal with it yet. There's a number of problems to solve. We've got a lot of the motor technology nailed down, power delivery and power storage. That's two different things entirely.
Yes.
But one of the things I haven't heard addressed much is just some of the differentiation and control systems. So that's got to be right up your alley.
Yeah, it is quite fun. There's a lot of discussion. I mean, you're looking at, you know, where do you put a terminal point? You know, we deal in fuel. Where do you put a terminal point where, you know, your battery capacity is getting down to a point where, you know, the motor is softening, you know, so you're not being able to use as much of the normal range as you would in a ground-based vehicle. There's a lot of discussions about that, or you know, it could be related to the throttle where we attach a servo to it, and it starts bringing you back to a power level that keeps you flying, but it lets you know that, you know, you might want to find a suitable landing place. You know, even though I'm very certain. I'm absolutely certain the aerospace is equipped with a parachute, but you know, that's a method of last resort.
I'm well aware of them.
Yeah.
I was actually one of the test pilots way back when on the BRS development days, so I've been under that chute a dozen times.
Wow.
So it was fun at the time. It's interesting what's come out of one crazy idea and turned into something that's become part of the normal scenario in aviation. Maybe a path you may be following.
Yeah. Yes.
There you go. I'd like to go back real quick, though. When your technology and what your efforts right now are based on the work that you did pioneering a more accurate way to gauge fuel quantity, which is, we know in a variety of aircraft, some of which I have owned, is a crapshoot. It's bad out there, and for some reason or another, when you look at accident records and you see fuel exhaustion, and you see fuel exhaustion from people who should know better, and oh yeah, the gauge is said quarter full, and things of that nature, there's no excuse for the fact that it hasn't been given more attention than it has. So when you put time and effort into it, I'm excited about it because one of the things we have to do and have done for 25 years of Aero-News is read accident reports every morning. And that's getting pretty unimpressive. When you see the same thing over and over again, you begin to wonder. But you're based on technology you started there. What was the impetus there? How did you come to those kind of investigative processes to get that kind of product?
Yeah, we did. We did spend a lot of time looking at legacy fuel senders, and we started and then we looked at them in a plexiglass tank on a boat. That was something would generate, a certain amount of random motion on a vehicle that we could observe. And we started looking at, that the problems weren't as people were perceiving them, but the problems that we saw were high latency, corrosion related to water in the fuel, which is also a boating issue. Latency and corrosion tend to produce a sticky mechanism. The sticky mechanism, you get to the fuels. Yeah. You get to the fuels, and the fuels have higher level aromatics that really aren't prevalent in auto gas, so erosion of the of printed inks that they use typically. You could see all those problems, but and we were trying a bunch of other technologies, but we saw, geez, if we could keep it simple, we could also prove to the FAA it was a very easy transition to go from one type of float to another type of float that was safer. But the big issues were those latency, corrosion, and making the realization that the float doesn't float, it really needs to rest on the fuel as it's dropping down. That was you say it out loud, but everybody think it just pops up. No, it's really that the fuel will leave it hanging up in the air because of the corrosion at the pivot, and then it drops down. Vibration that's normally inherent in aircraft will drop the float down. And so you used to see these hellaciously large floats in aircraft, and you go, well, it must be a buoyancy issue we're going to overcome. No, it was there to keep the float on the surface of the fuel. But as you looked at those things, and it was like, oh, we could solve all of these small problems, and just really observing it was the big clue to making it better. The great thing, and I think we mentioned last time, when we're up probably 20,000 senders over last year, we have 90,000 fuel senders in the field and yet have a fuel exhaustion or starvation event, and it's 10 years running.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know right there, doesn't it?
I mean, knock on wood,
yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, there's an idiot out there who will still do it.
There will be.
Aviation has its share of those, but holy smokes, that's an impressive stat. I was not aware at all. That is an incredibly impressive stat, especially if you take a look at how frequent those incidents are these days. And more important, just the fact that most of the people don't really get down to, okay, it just wasn't the pilot dummy, but there were causal factors that led to the pilot being a dummy.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things, in a long talk many years ago with Jim Hall, who at the time was head of NTSB. And he remember saying something along the lines, I just want to see one accident one day with one cause. It's all these causal factors. He says, and frankly, he didn't think it ever existed. It's just, there's always a million different reasons, or a lot of different reasons, reaching to a point of critical balance that becomes the overriding factor that creates the accident, or the accident chain, I should say.
Yeah, we did some work. We're interested. You become a student once you start looking at these things. You become a student. We built up a whole accident chain related to fuel-related events, and at the point that we could break it all the time was actually having accurate fuel level.
Wow. I'll tell you what, you've had an impact, and yet the sensor technology, as you noted, is now leading into other avenues. I like the fact that you're targeting the next generation. I think that's going to be pretty cool, to say the least. At the same time, there are unique new power systems that are going to need unique new solutions. I'm working with, I do a lot of flight tests, and I'm working with 3 projects in the quasi AEM field, or hope to be, you know how that goes. And we're looking at fuel cell technologies in a big way. And technically, by the time you get to the throttle, it's electric.
Yeah.
It doesn't start that way, but it's going to be interesting to see what people do down the line to be able to stay on top of that scenario as well.
Yeah, it'll be.
I may have to get your card for 1 or 2 of these guys.
Yeah, no, you know, once you've cleared out that area and you have and there's a commercial product available, as you know, the aviation world, especially if it's proven, especially if it has the reliability, especially if it meets a price point, you really will have captured the market.
Interesting. What did it take for you? I know one of the first things you do to become truly successful is volume, and volume means, you know, getting OEM acceptance. How difficult a road is that these days?
You know, I have a long-standing reputation in the industry, and I've helped out a lot of organizations and programs over my career, and I've been very fortunate.
Including 1 or 2 who didn't think they had a problem?
Yeah, yeah.
I won't mention any names.
Yeah, no, and I seem to have the ability to be the guy with the hammer.
Oh, there you go.
The old guy with the hammer. Here's your problem. And so, you know, I have some organizations who, you know, it would take a whole heck of a lot more, but there are some organizations out there who really turn to us to come up with unique solutions for them, and there are things that we are working on that I'm not talking about that are on that level. So when we get the attitude, and I tell my employees, my job is to make their job easier, and that's our attitude, and we have a really good esprit de corps, and you know, we're really good at matching up to other people's engineering departments, so it looks seamless, like they did the work. And we could name multiple projects like that are things that we did, but you wouldn't know and we're not talking about.
Interesting. 2 of the themes that have been talked about quite a bit among the various people we've interviewed over the last couple of days. One has been the supply chain issue dilemma that is facing much of the industry right now. And the other is the hiring scenario, whereby finding 1, people who are trained properly, and 2, people who are trained properly who actually want to work. What's your experience been?
Supply chain was scary. We actually got taken on purchasing necessary chips to move forward for our sensor to a very large extent. The FBI is involved with that. And that person, it's he's stolen over $3 or $4 million out of our industry, out of the aviation industry. Through fraud that he had available parts on the open market. That being said, I did secure, and I have more than my share of position sensor things, which is going to be another thing moving forward. If you want to use the same technology as us, I pretty much have a lion's share of the free chips that are out there. Because the same chip is the one that's keeping Ford trucks from reaching the Ford, Chevy, Dodge trucks from reaching dealerships. You know, these position sensors are endemic within the automotive industry. People-wise, that's a real funny thing. It's great. This is great that we're all, you know, talking to one another at a trade show, and in our community in Bend, Oregon, we finally got together, you know, business leaders 2 weeks ago. And someone walked up to me and said, you know, you're a celebrity and a story in town. And I said, you know, why is that? And they said, people talk about the interview process that they have with SAIS, and they feel like we sell the company more than they have to sell themselves. and that we're more telling them about the advantages and the benefits of coming to work for us. We don't seem to be having the same challenges as other people, but we're now starting to ramp up and hire more people, and we're seeing that the job market is quite tight. But
yeah.
We've been very successful up to this point in getting phenomenal people who are just expanding every day. I'm really just like the Pied Piper. That's a bad reference because that means my employees are rats. But other than that, yeah. Oops, yeah.
There you go. Scott, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the chance to catch up with you. It'd be very interesting to catch up with you every now and then, see how progress has gone. I'm particularly interested in seeing what you're doing with the throttle project in particular. Please keep us up to date and make sure anything newsworthy gets sent our way over here to Aero-News. And more important than anything else, go out and innovate. This is how we keep an industry alive. This is how we get ahead. This is how we defeat the last 2.5 years of, okay, what did we just get hit by? And more important, this is how we keep aviation alive. We appreciate all of it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, folks. Scott Philbin, president of SICE, and I actually started pronouncing that correctly rather than the way I was, which was dumb, and I apologize for that. We have 2 more guests on deck. Smart Sky is coming up, Astronics right after that, and then we're going to get a chance to close this all off and run ahead of the storm, so this could be fun. We're live at the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show in New Orleans, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
An ELT is just another tick on your pre-flight checklist, until you need it. Did you ever wonder what would happen if you had an engine failure over the mountains, marshland, or other dangerous terrain? Take to the skies confidently with the most reliable and highest performing ELTs and safety products on board that instantly mobilize life-saving search and rescue across the world. Read survivor stories from aviators and adventurers who survived life-threatening encounters thanks to ACR and RTEC's life-saving technology. Luck favors the prepared at survivorclub.com.
Vantage is Avidyne's family of all new flight display systems for retrofit and forward fit applications. Initial certification will be Vantage 12, retrofit glass for legacy Cirrus aircraft. Vantage 12 brings advanced capabilities and adds new life to Cirrus aircraft, including large 12-inch diagonal hybrid touchscreen displays, 3D synthetic vision, and split screen capabilities. Additional Vantage programs will be announced in the future.
Aviation Safety Resources is disrupting the market for aircraft emergency parachute recovery systems. ASR systems are smaller, lighter weight, and offer longer repack cycles than similar products available in the current market. ASR has a recovery system available for every type of aircraft: sport, experimental, light sport, general aviation, urban air mobility, vertical takeoff and landing, electric propulsion, and unmanned aerial systems. Find the right product for your aircraft at aviationsafetyresources.com.
And we're back live from the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show in New Orleans. Like I said, we were closing out strong today. Smart Skies Brick one. Okay, let me start that one more time. Smart Skies has been one of the major players, or one of the major names that's been coming up more and more when it comes to what we're doing with our airplanes, how we're getting more value of them. We're happy to have Britt here to talk, Britt Wanick, to talk to us about where Smart Sky is, what's going on, and more important, where are you going?
Well, I appreciate that.
If I can just keep speaking.
Yeah.
Throat's just starting to clutch up on me there.
Yeah, no worries. 3 days of a trade show, and we're a little out of practice, and but certainly happy to be back here at AEA this year and talk a little bit about Smart Sky. So, yes, we've been in the market for some time now. Launched back at NBAA in 2021, and moving into 2022, we're moving towards full CONUS coverage here at the end of next quarter. Which, wow, that's like right around tomorrow, right?
TikTok.
TikTok. So it's moving very quickly. So we are actively selling shipsets and getting ready to support service across a variety of aircraft. You might have heard a few days ago we launched with Fly Exclusive as one of our first fleet customers, and we're looking forward to more coming on board. From where we are as a capabilities perspective, right? Continue to deliver on the promise of what connectivity can mean for the back of the aircraft, but I would argue that's really kind of 1/3 of it, right? We're very used to seeing videos and with people looking at their iPhones or doing office-like work in the back. Maybe they're zooming or they're watching Netflix, right? But there's a whole 2/3 more of the aircraft that is the aircraft itself, as well as the cabin, the crew, the cockpit, operations, and then even the people here that are providing maintenance and repair operations. They need data. Right, and as we open up these capabilities and add to the amount of bandwidth and the real-time nature of what we can do, we see real opportunity in being able to support the community better from an operations and from a maintenance perspective, as well as from the cabin and those in the back of the aircraft.
You are in a very competitive segment.
Yep.
What differentiates Smart Sky? Why are you what you are? Why are you different? What gives you, to your mind, the competitive advantage?
Certainly. So we talk a lot about experience, right, and a consistent experience, and I would boil it down to this, is that when you get on an aircraft at the beginning of the day, business or commercial, you have a certain set of expectations about things you're going to be able to get done. And our goal is that when you step off that aircraft, they're done, right? There's no rushing into the FBO so you can send that email that you weren't able to, or taking that one voice call because you couldn't get through when you're on the plane. Those expectations are met, right? And so we've developed the technology, patented that, and created a system that has those capacities to deliver very consistently across the continental United States. So job number one is that consistent, dependable, and responsive experience, right? When you look at the company as a whole, though, right, we're innovators, right? It's a part of our DNA, and we're going to continue to push the envelope with how we deliver and the services behind that. So we also offer, essentially 3 core capabilities. One is that network and the capacity to it. 2 is the hardware to connect to it. And then the third component is bringing services to bear. So we have the SkyTelligence applications and services layer that allows our partners to deliver best in service or best in value to the community. It's not something that Smart Sky itself develops, but we help bring our partners in. So another differentiator there is allowing a freedom of choice and interoperability across the wide ecosystem of available services that exist in both commercial and business aviation.
I mentioned how competitive it is right now, and there's a lot of promises being made and a lot of expectations, especially in an industry that is drunk with having capabilities it didn't have just a few years ago and wanting more and more and more as we go on, especially as the aircraft continues to prove itself a stunning business tool in so many ways, and especially in a world that gets smaller and smaller by the day.
Right.
And Zoom isn't quite doing it, even though Zoom call may these days be on board the airplane.
Yeah.
Where do you see Smart Sky going? What is the future for your technology, your company, and what the services you provide your clientele?
Sure. So job one right now is to get to market with what we said we were going to do, which is to complete the CONUS deployment. We're focused on our flagship capability in the business aviation market. That's for essentially mid-size and above, but you will see later this year we do intend to launch our light product, which is aimed at the very light jet and smaller market. And it's a different configuration that frankly opens up many doors to us and attaches to an underserved market that has just as much a need as any others, right? So you'll see us focus there. We do have the ability to eventually expand internationally as well. But then when you look at things like advanced air mobility, you can point to some of the activity we have with GE Aviation and Mosaic, where we're looking at cloud-based FMS, right? Because we offer a very responsive and high throughput system, we can now look at taking data off the aircraft, processing it on the ground or in the cloud, which is a bit of a misnomer, and then moving it back to the aircraft in real time. So ideas around piloted or augmented pilots, or the abilities to achieve things that we talk about in advanced air mobility, where I might be able to have an air taxi, they won't happen without our type of technology and bringing that to market. So you'll continue to see us push into those spaces, develop thought leadership, continue our activities around things like cloud FMS, situational awareness, common operating pictures, and the like, that really take advantage of this amazing network that we're bringing to bear.
Can the technology support the demand?
I certainly think it can. I will say this, whatever we provide from a capabilities perspective, there will always be demand for more. To point to the opening ceremonies and the like, a few years ago, we didn't even know the name of TikTok, but now there's 178 million videos every minute, right? Yeah. So whatever we provide, we've found that the water will rise to its own level there. The challenge, I think, is to make sure that the services we bring to bear first are selectively chosen from the right partners and showing them a path that enables them to get there faster. We're not afraid to make mistakes. We're not afraid to have our partners make mistakes, but that success has to then be followed with, I made a mistake, I'm now changing and moving to the next thing. That accelerant is what we're offering through the network and through the platforms that we're providing from a service perspective. That's what's going to help satiate some of that hunger for delivering on aviation's digital transformation, as they say.
Interesting. Well, as you are getting ready for full CONUS deployment, obviously the testing process and the survey process upon a potential clientele has to have been extraordinarily educational. What are you learning right now from the last lap, shall we say, toward completion?
Yes, yeah. So the longest mile is always the last mile, right? So I think there's a couple things.
But the one you never forget either.
Yeah, you learn a lot in it, and every aircraft is unique to the mission and the specific nature of what the owner or the operator or the fleet manager needs. And what we're learning is that interoperability across a variety of those platforms is really a key aspect of it, right? So we work with different router providers. We have our own service providers. So this horizontal or channel-driven or value-added reseller model, I think, is a very important and powerful tool to help bring together the community in a way that helps deliver on a service. And as we're engaging with first customers and our first MROs and deploying, it's a fun collaboration that's happening, and there's some good people really leaning forward, and that's an exciting way to bring something new to market. And I think as we get through this last kind of hurdles of deploying the network, the hard work of development and being able to take this approach both from a business and a technology perspective is really starting to pay off.
How pivotal will things like the FlySense deployment be, especially this early in the game? You're not quite done yet, so
yeah,
that's kind of a big announcement when you're still
early days, right?
Baking the cake, you know?
Yeah, it's initial customers are your partners, right? And we've had some from the very early days that have supported us, and Fly Exclusive leans forward. They're looking for innovation. They have a positive business model where they're going to deliver change and something special to their customers, and we're happy to be a part of that.
It's we've come from this 2.5 years of challenge, and was an interesting time for the avionics industry because there was actually a fair amount of business being done because of people's airplanes were down.
Yeah.
And so now's the time to get a panel, now's the time to get an engine, now's the time to do this and that. And all that was well and good. But the industry right now is suffering from two different issues that we've been discussing with each guest by and large. One was the supply chain issue, and two was finding the kind of talent necessary to staff the companies. In this particular case, we've almost joked about making it a drinking game today with how many times we're going to say supply chain issues. Is that affecting you at this point, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, so I think it'd be a fallacy to say that we're immune to what's happening in the global marketplace. We certainly are impacted by that, and it's not so much decisions on our own or in our own supply chain, but those of our customers, right? And so it does define how we go to business, right? Do we have hardware available? Are we ready to go to market? Do we have the things we need? Yes. Do we have long-term visibility that to a year from now and how the supply chain is going to play out? I think we're in the same camp of everyone. We're essentially preparing for what we think will be a difficult situation and making sure that we're ready for that as we continue to scale up the company. The net of that, though, is that we understand these things and we're looking at them much the way that anybody else would, right? So supply chain is an issue for us. It does affect the way that we engage with the market and from a timing perspective, but we feel prepared to be able to handle it. On the second nature of having the people there that are available, I would point to the fact that we do think education is a key element. We are bringing something new, and connectivity is often misunderstood. So getting our arms around those people that are putting it into action, if you will, whether it be the aviation maintenance technician on the shop floor or the actual pilot themselves or the crew in the back, right? I think education is a key element to help augment and be a force multiplier for that. Additionally, we as a company have an opportunity to use our place in the market through the promotion of our own people, through the promotion of educational facilities, to really show people that there's some exciting things going on here, right? Aviation isn't stuck in the 1970s anymore. It is a time for digital change, for data, for analysis, for new developments, and we're at the forefront of bringing that to bear.
The pace of technological innovation right now is beyond belief. It really is extraordinary, and what was a crazy idea just a few years ago is not only reality now, it's starting to get a little dated, and we're on to the next thing. It's extraordinary to watch and fun to watch. At the point at which you go to full Conus deployment, what's the fleet going to look like at that point, and what kind of growth do you forecast over the preceding years?
Good question. No crystal balls here and the like, but certainly our goal is to add more users here as quickly as we can based on the demand that's out there in the marketplace. As you mentioned earlier, right, there's a tremendous amount of growth. Many aircraft that we thought were going to be retired during the COVID era have actually come back into service, right, and are being retrofitted. So I don't have a clear picture as to how large that number is going to be. Add to it that we do plan to launch the light product in the second half of the year, and that is a much broader market beyond just the mid-size and above jets. So we expect that to expand relatively quickly. And then the third thing is we do have digital solutions customers today that are expanding in the market. They're the peripheral players in the ecosystem, right? The maintenance repair organizations that are using the output of our systems to be able to expand their own operations and improve those. So all three of those together end up being a very robust ecosystem that we support and have services for by the end of the year.
And in your initial deployments, what kind of equipment are you starting with there? I'm just curious to get a little idea for who the early adopters are and what they're flying.
Yeah, so we have several STCs available for a variety of aircraft today on common platforms. I'm not going to name them off here. You can go to our website and check that out. But obviously we fly our own Citation and the like, and we understand where the bulk of the majority of the market is and what their needs are there. That relies today on our flagship product, which essentially has two antennas and the onboard radio, and then connects to the systems as needed for the aircraft itself. And the light product will follow suit, but it will be a single antenna.
Interesting. And what will be the difference in capabilities between the two?
Same network, same performance. We expect that it'll be a different service associated with
Gotcha.
that, essentially. But in very specifics, the antenna, the FDQ antenna that we utilize in light is both transmit and receive, where the high performance blade is a receive only antenna, provides that additional capability for more users on the aircraft.
Brett, we sure appreciate spending time with us here, and my apologies for my voice and
No worries.
Screwing up a name or two here. It's been a long week. I can barely talk at this point. We would appreciate being kept up to date, especially as you reach full CONUS deployment. Let us know about that, of course, and be happy to cover that event when it occurs. And let's for sure catch up at NBAA and see how progress is going at that point. We will be there in a big way.
Yep.
So we've been covering that event extensively for all 25 years of Aero-News. And somewhere down the line, maybe we'll be pushing news out to some of your customers down the line.
Well, I'd love to see that happen, and we'll certainly be back to you between now and the end of June talking about the full CONUS completion and looking ahead to the second or third and fourth quarters. So they will be really exciting for us.
Smart Sky VP Britt Wannock telling us about even more of aviation's bright future. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break. We've got our last guest of the day and of the show on deck, Grant Sumter from Astronix. We're going to be talking about EVS, one of my favorite topics from Special Missions days, because what you can't see can hurt you. So EVS allows you to kind of peek under the curtain, which is a neat thing indeed. We are live at the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show in New Orleans, and be right back. Alrighty, folks, we're back, and I'll tell you what, it's been a long week. The throat is feeling it now in a big way. I'm kind of clutching up here, so I apologize for the occasional cough. But we did save some of the best for last. Grant Sumter from Astronix, and we're talking about one of my favorite subjects from some of the work I did in special missions flying, especially with some ATF stuff from way back when the technology was really in its infancy. Let's talk about what Astronix is doing in particular with EVS, and more important, just the state of the industry and how you're finding your company's reception among the community here at AEA. First of all, can you give me a little bit of a tutelage for the folks out here who may not be that familiar on the value of EVS in the cockpit?
Well, yeah, EVS can bring a lot of value in the cockpit, basically for safety enhancement. Our tagline is we turn night into day. And so what our product does is allow the pilot to see in the dark, to see objects in the dark. You know, obviously everybody talks about the deer in the runway, but the fuel truck or the light post at a dark airport, you know, to avoid that. But you know,
certain airports in Nevada where the rabbits were this big.
That would definitely help prevent it.
That's a story.
Yep, but that would definitely, our product would, you know, help alleviate, you know, damage to that, you know, person's airplane. So yeah, but we're an enhanced vision system. We also can help pilots not only during the nighttime, but the daytime as well. Especially if you're a pilot that flies in the LA basin with lots of smog and haze.
Oof.
We can declutter that. We can see through that, and we've had pilots report back to us who fly in that environment that it helps them find the airport sooner and quicker. So not only nighttime flying, but daytime flying as well. You know, our product is an infrared detector, as you know. They're obviously much smaller than what you are used to in flying. They're much lighter, and you know, obviously the resolution is much different over time. Our product is right now at 640 by 40 lines of resolution, and that's great for a cockpit display. You know, if you get wider, you don't have 22-inch displays in a cockpit. So our product works great. And another thing that we've done to enhance our product is we've started. But we've been blending visible light with infrared, and what that does gives the
multi-spectrum.
Yep, but it gives the pilot the ability to see LED airport lighting, because as you know, LEDs don't produce a lot of heat. So with the visible light camera, we were able to correct that and give the pilots the ability to see airport. The other thing too that's really neat with the visible light blending is the amount of detail a pilot can also see. Taxiing at the airport, the visible light actually, you can see the words on the hangars, so it help you find the right hangar to go to as well. So it's just little things that people are using it. They're actually teaching us how they're using the system in different ways that we didn't even think about, which is really exciting for us. So our customers are actually telling us about different features that our EVS brings to the cockpit, because you know they get to see things in real life that we don't get to experience. So,
who is or who are the kinds of clients that are adopting this kind of technology, and why?
Well, one of the ones we're really excited about right now is the firefighting, aerial firefighting industry has been using EVS. Obviously, like flying in the LA basin, we can see through the smoke. And that obviously gives the pilot...
And smoke in the LA basin is really bad news.
Yeah. So as an aerial firefighter, you know, we really want them to obviously see where they're going. And our product definitely clears that smoke out of their view for them. The other thing that's exciting with aerial firefighting as well is not only the safety benefit, but the pilots can also see where they've been putting the retardant in water. And obviously, as they put the water down, that area turns dark. And so they're able to get that fire out faster because they're not putting the water on the same place over and over again. And obviously, today with the price of fuel obviously going through the roof, you know, if we can help them get that fire out quicker and help them save fuel. So I mean, the number one benefit is obviously the pilot and aircraft safety, but you know, 2 and 3, and help them get that fire out faster and to, you know, even save some dollars doing so. I think is tremendous benefit. So firefighting has really been a major sector that is taken off with EVS. Obviously, there's many general aviation aircraft with EVS using it. We have a King Air STC kit, for example. Air ambulances all over the world are installing our system as well, because you know they fly into a lot of airfields around the globe don't have, you know, the lighting that we do. So
how about adaptation by the rotor community?
Yeah, that's big time for us as well. Yes, air ambulances as well, and rotorcraft, search and rescue, oil and natural gas platforms use our product as well. So yeah, definitely firefighting in helicopters as well, for the Bambi buckets and so on. They're using our system. Actually, they're facing it down, so as they retrieve the water in the lakes, and they can see the aerial firefighting aircraft with the floats are actually using it to look at the water as well, to make sure there's no logs as they land to scoop up the water. So I mean, there's EVS. Our EVS system is a lightweight, small system that's very intuitive and easy and affordable. And this makes it's just a really intuitive product for our customers to use, and they definitely see the benefit really quick.
Talk about the componentry, the equipment that needs to be installed on an aircraft, as well as the interface for somebody to be able to utilize this technology.
Sure. So there's a lot of avionics out there, display systems, Garmin, Rockwell Collins, Universal, and so on. They all have a composite video input. And so really that's what it boils down to, is any display system that has a composite video input will work with our camera system. And something we're kind of excited about, we're getting close to being able to integrate our video on the iPad. So it won't be wireless, you'll have to use the lightning cable, but that's something down the road that a partner of ours is creating, so.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's very nice because, as probably and a lot of your viewers know, the space in the cockpit's at a premium. So
big time.
So the iPad we think is going to help a lot of.
Not to mention being very cost effective.
And yes, and that as well. But most of the avionics manufacturers do have a composite video input that our cameras will work with.
Interesting. Now, you've mentioned some of the GA and other applications, and we've also talked, of course, about special missions. Are you at all looking or working with defense industry at all?
We absolutely we do have military customers of different shapes and sizes on a variety of different flying aircraft. We obviously. So some of our customers don't really tell us a whole lot about what
nature of the
they've
beast.
got going.
I hear you.
But yes, we've definitely been integrated into military aircraft.
Interesting. I'd be very curious to see how some of that is coming about. But then again, in many cases, they can't tell you, and if they did, they'd have to kill you on the spot.
Something like that. We don't want.
There you go. What is keeping the GA and BizNav community from wider adoption? It's useful technology. In some cases, it's critical technology. Certain areas you fly, it almost needs to be mandatory. You bring up the LA base. I used to live out there, so boy, fire season or just year-round season with the smog and everything else, the criticality of what you have to deal with is pretty extraordinary. But what is keeping, in your mind, a greater adoption among different segments of the aviation community?
Well, I think really what a big thing is I don't think people understand what EVS is, or I think there's a majority of people that have never heard of EVS.
Oh, I agree with you.
And so I think we need to do a better job of getting our messaging out there as well. But I think that's probably the biggest hurdle is a lot of times like, oh, I've never even heard of that, or I've never even seen that. So, I think we're out there more. I mean, we're at Oshkosh, and I think we're seeing more and more people, seeing us and what we can do. We have over 5,000 EVSs flying right now globally.
Oh, no kidding! I was wondering about that.
Yeah, and so.
That's not a bad bit of penetration in the market.
It needs to grow. There's no doubt, but I think we're making progress every year.
Wonderful. Okay, where do you see the technology going from here? What are the leaps ahead that you folks are working on, or what are the other accommodating technologies that may, in fact, increase the utilization or enhance the usefulness of EVS?
Well, that's a very good question, and we're studying that at different levels. I mean, obviously eVTOL aircraft and things like that are going to have different needs. And the reality is we don't have I don't have an answer to that question per se, but we are working, what we're trying to do is we're working with our customers to tell us what kind of technologies they want to integrate with infrared. I mean, there's lots of things out there. There's LiDAR, you know, maybe putting in a 5G transmitter so that the video image can be transmitted down in an urban environment.
Okay.
You know, so there are some things that we're looking at to enhance that for possibly urban or mobility and see what that. But we're still working on what that roadmap looks like right now.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what you come up with in the coming days. Grant, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here at Aero-News and Airborne. It's been a fun week for the industry. It's been fun to watch how everybody's kind of been coming out of their shell after the last 2.5 years of, oh my gosh, what are they going to throw at us next? We have been asking 2 questions of everybody in regards to kind of an industry consensus. One is the effect of the supply chain shortage. How is that affecting y'all at this point? And how are you finding the ability to find trained people for your workforce? And if you can find trained, then of course there's the issue whether or not they want to work. How are you seeing that climate right now?
Well, so far for our product, we have been fine.
You're the lucky ones.
We are fortunate. Our processing, because we are optic, it doesn't take a whole lot. And so, in other words, our product, it doesn't have a whole lot of exotic components to it. So that's helped us a lot, obviously. And the reality is, as far as people go, we've been able to retain the people that we have. And so I think we've been very fortunate there. I mean, obviously, you can always, you always need more capacity. But we're holding our own. As right now, I know there's a lot of companies. Obviously, the scuttle around here is supply chain, but fortunately for us, we've been able to get materials for our product.
Wonderful.
So
glad to hear it. Alrighty, folks, I'll tell you what, we thank Astronics Grant Sumter, Manager of Sales and Business Development, for fun chat about EVS technologies and especially the product line that they have been working on diligently for a number of years. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know about you, but 3 hours is enough. So we are going to conclude our programming here live from the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. Before we do that, a couple of quick things. One, amazing team here working this week. Nathan Cramasino, the guy behind the curtain. Don't disturb the guy behind the curtain. Well, we do it anyway.
There are 4 minutes remaining to bid on the silent auction.
And of course, we get AEA with a word in as well. Our video team, Annie Byer, Holland Lee, who have just done yeoman's work, and we sure appreciate them keeping us on track. That's worked out very nicely, and most important, appreciate their keeping up with all of our little audio issues and tracking all that as time went on. Marino Aguirre, who's been here working alongside each of our people and helping us in a number of areas in marketing communications. And of course, my long-suffering wife, who kind of runs this place, makes sure everything goes well and keeps us out of trouble. And boy, I tell you what, I could not do this without her. We will see you all live Tuesday morning, 0900, for the morning brief at Sun and Fun. We will be live each of the pivotal mornings at Sun and Fun with a morning brief, a little bit of what happened the day before, what's coming up during the day, and an interview or two. There will be a number of video programs and such throughout the rest of the day, as well as our stories at the Sun and Fun Digital Daily site, snfdd.com. Sierra November Foxtrot Delta.com. On top of that, we've got just a tremendous amount of programming that we're going to be pursuing there. We will also be making some announcements from the show about projects that we have in mind. Our Sport Plane Resource Guide project, the fact that I have agreed to take over the Bob Hoover Legacy Foundation again, and we are going to be working diligently in that regard to put together some programs that the late Bob Hoover and I talked about years ago, and a lot of his good friends, the folks on the board, some great people from throughout Bob's life and friends of mine as well, who feel that what Bob stood for is something that this industry needs to embrace and go forward with, especially in the terms of ethics and professionalism. We have had extraordinary support here from AEA. I cannot tell you how much we value the staff of AEA. We've done this for 14 years directly in live streaming, and you could not ask for a better partner. We, of course, are their media team for this event. We are for Sun and Fun and for AUVSI a couple of days after that. We are privileged to work with some of the best in the business, but frankly, if there's a little favoritism, it's certainly with AEA. They've been amazing to us, with us, and working with us. Except when they're interrupting me in the middle of a live shoot. Okay, that's it, folks. We have had an amazing week. I've had a great team here doing great things. We've had some great meals, some great times. Yes, we did the Bourbon Street Crawl. And we are prepared to close out the 65th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show live, at least for a few more seconds, from the New Orleans Convention Center. And we will see you in Orlando next year for AEA 23. Next week for Sun and Fun, week after that for AUVSI. And of course, come Friday, Airborne, Holland Lee will be here to present some of the highlights here from AEA, as well as a few things we expect for Sun and Fun. And one last thing, for those of you, and bidding is now closed. And the one last thing for those of you who've been asking, Friday we will be doing the April 1st edition of Aero-News. But the thing we're doing a little bit differently this year is we're picking some of the best stories from the last 25 years, some of the best parodies, some of the craziest stuff we've ever done. And that will be what we present on Friday. And judging by how hard Marino and I were laughing Monday night at all this, I think we're going to have a great series of stories for you. That's it. I'm done. My voice is dead. My wife is thankful for that. We will see you at Sun and Fun.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Vantage is Avidyne's family of all-new flight display systems for retrofit and forward-fit applications. Initial certification will be Vantage 12, retrofit glass for legacy Cirrus aircraft. Vantage 12 brings advanced capabilities and adds new life to Cirrus aircraft, including large 12-inch diagonal hybrid touchscreen displays, 3D synthetic vision, and split-screen capabilities. Additional Vantage programs will be announced in the future.
The ELT is just another tick on your pre-flight checklist, until you need it. Did you ever wonder what would happen if you had an engine failure over the mountains, marshland, or other dangerous terrain? Take to the skies confidently with the most reliable and highest performing ELTs and safety products on board that instantly mobilize life-saving search and rescue across the world. Read survivor stories from aviators and adventurers who survived life-threatening encounters thanks to ACR and RTEC's life-saving technology. Luck favors the prepared at survivorclub.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention?
Pilot Communications USA is proud to introduce our latest headsets, the Carbon A1 Active Noise Reduction and the Carbon P1 Passive Headset. Carbon fiber makes our headsets 30% lighter than others, which significantly reduces pilot fatigue. Our BlueLink hand control unit allows you to connect 2 devices at the same time, and the record out capability can send audio to an onboard camera or digital recorder. Get the headset that's so light you may forget you're wearing one at pilot-usa.com.
At Diamond Aircraft, innovation is in our DNA. Whether you're taking to the skies for training or business travel, every aircraft in Diamond's lineup features innovative technology, an industry-leading safety record, superior performance and efficiency, and a comfortable flying experience. No other company has pioneered as many aviation firsts, achieved more milestones, or received the same amount of industry praise as Diamond. Discover why Diamond Aircraft is one of the most trusted manufacturers in aviation at diamondaircraft.com.
Aviation Safety Resources is disrupting the market for aircraft emergency parachute recovery systems. ASR systems are smaller, lighter weight, and offer longer repack cycles than similar products available in the current market. ASR has a recovery system available for every type of aircraft: sport, experimental, light sport, general aviation, urban air mobility, vertical takeoff and landing, electric propulsion, and unmanned aerial systems. Find the right product for your aircraft at aviationsafetyresources.com.